Good evening. I'm gonna open the meeting, even though some folks are still trying to find a seat. At 6:05, this is a special meeting of the Select Board to focus in on the CDBG-DR grant submission, and we're here to talk about it. We're devoting the entire meeting to this. We will have a presentation from Karen and Liz, and then we will have questions and answers, which will take quite a while probably. We'd like people to line up at the microphone if you want to speak. If you don't feel it's easy to get there, just let us know. We have a portable mic. But we would like to have kind of a queue there so we know who's first. We will be bringing in the Zoom people, but priority will be on the people in the room. The purpose of this is to make sure that information that's been gathered by the group that's been working on all these projects, get questions answered and have comments heard. We would like to keep your comments and questions small, short, so everyone has a chance. And we'd like not to repeat questions. If somebody's asked a question, we don't need it asked again. Let's see. Okay, and following the public discussion, the Select Board is going to have their regular meeting and talk about this and hopefully take an action. So we will need, you're welcome to stay for that. We will need to have that just be us to talk about this so we can come to a decision. If we have questions, we can ask them, but primarily it's us. There will be, after this meeting, an executive session, which is to talk about a real estate issue and unrelated to this grant, but we will, that'll be at the end of the meeting. So that's what we plan tonight. So with that, Karen, would you like to?
I thought you had an agenda change.
He just mentioned
Oh,
it.
you have, you're good.
I mentioned it.
Yeah, you turn it over. Sorry. Thank you.
So, yep, go ahead.
I'll stand up because a lot of people here tonight. Thanks for coming out. For those who don't know me, I'm Karen Hatcher, your town grants administrator. And first thing, I want to give gratitude for the rain. I know it's been much, but the relief from the drought of the summer. It's nice that it's a gentle rain and not a flood, and it's an interesting juxtaposition considering the topic, to have rain today. Tonight, we're going to learn about the Community Development Block Grant disaster recovery application that a small but very dedicated and mostly volunteer group has lived and breathed over the last 2 months on a very compressed timeline. With the help of one very skilled and knowledgeable consultant, Liz Curry, who is on her way from Burlington and stuck on 89, but she'll be here shortly. You'll hear from her tonight. I want to just take a moment to acknowledge and give big thanks to those folks who worked on this before we go on. Arian Tabumari, Lauren Geiger, Rick Burrows, Josh Pitts, and Regional Recovery Officer Pat Moulton. Just want to say thank you, and it really has been my honor to work with you. So, a little bit over a year ago, I stepped up to help the town figure out how to get every dollar we needed to recover from the floods. And I had no idea what I was getting into. I wanted to help, and since mucking basements is not in my skill set, I thought I could do something more administrative. Since then, I've learned more about how federal agencies can both help and make more difficult recouping funds and repairing disaster damage. I've learned how to find and hire experts to help our team navigate FEMA, Federal Highway, USDA, and other grant processes. I've advocated for Plainfield with members of the state and federal agencies and found myself in the center of some very intense conversations, even with many of my neighbors. I certainly didn't see myself here tonight making the case for applying for nearly $10 million to begin to rehouse members of our community who suffered devastation during the flooding. But I remain committed to figuring out how to get the money our town needs. And we could do a lot of good with $10 million. Context is important. We're not here tonight because funding for housing is a nice to have. We're here because 39 individuals or families in our community lost their housing. Many of them are still housing insecure, 1 year on. We are also here because we understand that in the current political climate, we can't count on federal funds coming again. We've already experienced disruption in normal funding processes at the whim of the federal government, and this is the reality we face. And we are not alone. This week, many other small rural Vermont communities and some larger ones are having these meetings before submitting applications for this limited funding. Last night in Barrie, 7 projects were approved by their select board. As the town in Washington County with the 3rd highest disaster recovery needs after Montpelier and Barrie, we think Plainfield should be in the game. So I'd like to issue an invitation tonight. It's easy to think that we're on 2 sides of this issue. But really, we are one community with a number of points of view. So I would invite us all to listen tonight with an open mind and an open heart. We all have feelings, we all have points of view, but we've all suffered a trauma together. And we're trying to recover from that, and this is one way that we're putting forward to do that. So thank you, and now we'll get into the business of the meeting.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so you have handouts. So as Carl mentioned, we have a format tonight because there are a lot of you here and there are a lot of people on Zoom. And we do want to hear from everyone who wants to speak. So the way we've organized the meeting is to take the comments topic by topic, to make it organized and so that we can make the most of the time together. So you have, on the first page of your handout is the public hearing agenda and format, and it lists for you the topics. So first thing I'm going to do is a presentation that'll give you a lot of information about the CDBG grant itself, and then, what we've put together and why we think it's a good fit. And then we'll get into the public comment section. And we have some volunteers working with us tonight, so Peter Young's going to collect the questions. So if you queue up to get in line to ask a question and someone in front of you has asked that question, no need to re-ask it, we've got it. Peter's going to capture it. We'll capture all the questions. And then once all those questions for that topic are pulled together, then we'll answer them all at once. All right, so we'll just make good use of our time. So Peter's going to do that. We're going to stick to the 3 minutes at the mic. And Jake McBride is going to be our timekeeper. He's back there. He'll give you a 30-second warning. And we ask that you respect the timekeeper. We're going to do people in the room first. And once all of those questions have been asked, we'll go to Zoom. And Francis Rose is monitoring Zoom. And so Zoom people, use the raise your hand function on your screen. And we'll queue you up. And if your question got asked already, and you don't feel like you don't have anything more you want to add, you can take your raise the hand down. Okay, let me just make sure I've got everything. So in your packet, I also just want to point out, we've pulled together some things for you that we think are important for you to know. The 2 things I really want to point out, there's a Q&A there, and that's just general information. But there's a piece we put together, which is the Washington County low to moderate income data by household. And this is so interesting because when we think about affordable housing, very often we think about people who are at the bottom of the socioeconomic ladder, but in fact, the people who would qualify for affordable housing under this program are your teachers and the people who work in your town office, and the people in our community who are making $40 or $50 or $60,000 a year, right? So it's not what we typically think. So this chart is really an important reference. The other thing you have is the budget, and Liz is going to go over that when she's here. And I want to acknowledge that it was copied kind of small and kind of dark. So don't worry, we will help clarify some of the things that are on that. Okay, let me just see if I've got it all. I do. All right, great. So Francis Rose, can you bring up the presentation, please?
Yes.
Thank you. And I'm sorry we're on this, so you'll have to kind of pivot yourselves this way. All right. Okay, so here we go. This is going to be tricky because we have people chatting and all kinds of fun stuff on the screen. So this is our cup. So here we are. We're going to talk about the CDBG. And CDBG-DR stands for Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery. It's a special category. Next slide, please. Are we in this? Yeah, you can just scroll. So interesting, just want to show you guys that Plainfield was featured on one of the guide documents that the state put together. So if you're not thinking that we were taken seriously, we were. I just wanted to point that out. We can move on. Thank you. So this slide is little town, big impact. 1,200 people, $1.5 million annual budget, but the disasters of 2023 and 2024 wreaked havoc from the top of the brook to the village and from the Marshfield line to East Montpelier. 28 buildings containing 39 housing units have applied for FEMA buyout, representing a $6 million loss. 112 FEMA individual assistance financial loss claims were the third highest in Washington County, third highest after Montpelier and Barre, in this little town. Approximately $2 million claimed. Claims to repair and rebuild infrastructure through FEMA and federal highway. More than a dozen projects on roads, bridges, culverts. Over $20 million worth of damage. So when we think about where we are, we've not been here before. Next slide, please. So the CDBG disaster recovery money that has come to Vermont is $67,845,000. And those funds are directed for disaster relief, long-term recovery, restoration of infrastructure and housing, and economic revitalization of what they call most impacted and distressed areas. And all of Washington County is what they call a MID, all of it. Okay. And I just want to point out, some people were wondering, why are we putting so much focus in this grant application on the 2023 flood? The reason for that is because this money is tied to disaster 4720, which is the 2023 flood, not 4810, which was last year. And so in order to qualify for the funds, you have to tie back to that disaster. And we can, because what I just quoted for you, those are real numbers. Next. Okay, so the timeline for the grant. This was a very compressed timeline and a really complicated application. The pre-application was due in August after we heard about it in the middle of July. The application deadline is September 30th. Between August 5th and September 30th, we had to have meetings with the state about our pre-application. We had to be given the green light, and then we had to hit the gas and pull together all the things we needed to be able to have a competitive application. Is this an ideal timeline? In no world is this ideal. In no world. But this is the one we were given. So in order to have a chance for this money, we had to meet it. Not perfect, because everybody wanted more public engagement. Everybody wanted more work on the design. Everybody. But that's not the opportunity we had. So here we are. Community Development Board will meet on November 20th to review the applications they get. We believe there will be about 50 competing for this money. In January, we should hear how much and for what we get. After that, there's a process by which we have a grant agreement negotiated and signed, and then the funds become available. It takes months. But that's the time frame we're working on. Next, please. How are we scored? How do we compete? There are these three main categories in the grant application and the scoring grid. It's about need, it's about impact, and it's about feasibility. So all of these areas, we have to answer questions about all of this. We had to help the state understand that we could meet all of these pieces so that we can get the maximum number of points. And that's what we've been working on. Because honestly, a half-baked application will not be competitive and it won't even see the light of day. So like, if we were gonna do it, we wanted to make sure we did a good job. Next. So how much money was in the funding categories in this grant, in CDBG-DR? So they broke it down this way. Administration money, and that's, hi Liz. Administration money, planning, housing, infrastructure, and a mitigation set aside. Our application is looking for funding out of the housing pot. It's the biggest one, and it fits. We also are looking for funding out of the mitigation set aside because that's where the matching funds for the emergency watershed protection piece comes in. So those two categories are where we're looking to get our money from. Next, please. Your time is good. All right. So what are the goals of that category in CDBG? To reconstruct, rehabilitate, or construct affordable rental and homeownership units that support community adaptation goal outside the floodplains and flood-impacted corridors, right? In those mid areas in all of Washington County. And when we say they had to be for low and moderate income folks, and that's where that affordability grid comes in, right? So 70% of all the units built needed to be sold or be for people who were at that level of income. Those people, like our teachers and the folks who work in the stores and our town clerk and our town treasurer. And so at the level on your grid, that 80% of median income, that's what we're talking about. So if you look on the grid, and we look at just 80%, if you're a two-person family, 80% means in your house you earn $67,520 if you're a couple. If you have a child, $75,920. So if you're that or under, you qualify. So we're not talking about people who aren't working, we're not talking about people on Section 8, we're not talking about those folks. We're talking about working people who can't afford what it costs to own a home in this state, in our community. Next, please. So what is in our grant application? Well, you all know that the East Village Expansion Project infrastructure is in this grant application. It's construction, hard costs and soft, which Liz is going to get into with you. Professional project management funding for 5 to 6 years because we recognize that our little town staff does not have the expertise nor the time to manage a project of this magnitude. We get it. So there's $520,000 in this grant that will fund that work, a professional person to manage. Third, downstreet housing and community development subgrant. Down Street wants to build perpetually affordable homes, 5 of them on the property for people, and they'll manage that, but that's a good deal. So we want to help them do that, and there's money in this grant to sub-grant to Down Street. The matching funds for the property, the Emergency Watershed Protection Grant, it's a $1 million project that would address the erosion of the bank from the Friends Meeting House along the Winooski to the Plainfield Health Center, which is in jeopardy. It's eroding at a rate that's a little scary. And we have a grant for 75% of the cost of that, and we need the match, 25%, it's about $304,000, which no one who lives along that stretch has to pay. So the town is trying to figure out how to come up with it. We're putting it in this grant. We did not include, and it's important to note, that we did not include in this grant the cost of land acquisition, $600,000, and we're not. Because if we did, then the HUD rules would apply to all of the homes that were built on that property. And that slows construction down, makes it more expensive, more difficult, because all the regulations have to be followed. So, and the other thing is that 50% of any of the money that gets generated from lot sales on that property has to go back to HUD. So it's not a good deal, right? There are better ways to fund the acquisition, because then you can maybe sell lots and then use those funds to perhaps build the coffers of the town so we can take care of some of the other needs that we've got. So that was a decision that was made in conversation with the select board. Okay, we'll let you get through that. Thank you. Zoom is so much fun, isn't it? Okay, next. All right. So how does our grant application align with the goals of CDBG-DR? How does it align? Well, affordable housing, number 1, right? Down Street wants to do 5 units. Habitat for Humanity wants to build on 5 lots, 5 duplexes. So that's another 10 affordable units, right? So it's 15, so that's a lovely thing. Disaster recovery, the number of planned units in this application replaces the units lost in the flood, almost 1-to-1. So 39 housing units, people's homes lost, 40 in the plan at this point. Hazard mitigation, building housing out of the floodplain and matching funds for emergency watershed protection both hit that number, hit that button. So those are in the grant. Next. How does this grant application meet the moment we are in? Number 1, it rebuilds our tax base. An estimated 11% of the grand list was lost to the floods. That's $27 million of value gone. What does that equate to in our annual tax revenue? About $150,000 a year. And where does that get made up? The rest of us. We pay that. Our tax rate goes up because all of that is lost. 2, adding housing stock. This was a piece of information I did not know, and when I heard it, it shocked me. 34% of Plainfield's housing stock is unavailable due to seasonal rentals, Airbnbs, and abandonment of properties. And one might think, oh, it's mostly abandoned properties. Not true. Half and half. 17% abandoned and 17% seasonal or Airbnb. People not living in those homes full-time. I was shocked. And here we are in Vermont with a deficit of 40,000 housing units. 40,000. Where are people gonna live? Third, we meet the moment by revitalizing our town through this grant. Our population has not grown since the 80s, and we are aging. Look at the room. Look around, folks. School enrollment is down. Housing costs for young families is not affordable. There are fewer volunteers, fewer workers, fewer customers for businesses. I mean, trying to get a volunteer, sorry, but you know, those of us that have been doing it, it's like, you know, we all look like this. We're all, we need young people. So those 3 ways we meet the moment in this grant application. Next slide, please. How this application also meets the charge of the East Village Advisory Committee, as given by the Select Board, that they shall develop a financially feasible plan to implement that will create infrastructure and saleable lots for a new neighborhood east of the current Lower Village on 23.9 acres, over there. And these were the goals that they were set to this committee. Rehouse those affected by the floods, provide additional affordable housing, include a mix of single-family homes, multiplexes, tiny houses, and apartments. Revitalize the town, prioritizing flood-displaced and other Plainfield residents and those who have made significant contributions to the town. Next. Restore the lost tax base. Expand the water and wastewater user base. Determine a timeline according to which makes most sense logistically, ecologically, and financially. Place infrastructure as early as possible so that buyers can design and construct homes as early as possible. Be cost neutral to the town, create public, common, and open space and paths that enrich the lives of Plainfield residents. We believe that this grant, the way it's written, meets that charge. Next. Okay, you've heard enough from me. I'd like to introduce Liz Curry, who has worked with us. Liz came to us, we applied to the READY program at VHCB for an experienced grant writer who knows housing. And God, were we lucky.
Jargon alert.
VHCB, Vermont Conservation and Housing and Conservation Board. You can do this, she can do it. Liz has been a wonder and really has been a steady hand in keeping us on track and really making sure that we submit a strong application. So I'm going to let her take you through the pieces of what's in the application, why we've laid it out that way and what the budget looks like. And if she gets too wonky and you need clarification, I'll let her, give her the wonky.
Thank you, Karen. Hi, everyone. I'm Liz Curry, and thank you for allowing me to share on this public hearing tonight. As Karen said, VHCB, acronyms, is the Vermont Housing and Conservation Board, and I actually started my career at the Vermont Housing and Conservation Board underwriting affordable housing applications back in 1988 or 9, when it began. And after a while, I went to work in a nonprofit development organization that later merged with the Burlington Community Land Trust and became Champlain Housing Trust. And I developed affordable housing in Northwest Vermont in Franklin and Grand Isle counties. I've always worked in rural communities. I've actually rarely worked in Burlington and Chittenden counties, so I feel more familiar and comfortable with rural communities. After developing affordable housing, I worked for Green Mountain Transit, managing federal grants and capital projects and the ADA transportation program, and then worked at Efficiency Vermont. So consulting allows me to kind of blend a lot of those things. So in terms of this grant, CDBG-DR program, what it's allowing Plainfield to do is implement infrastructure, and that's on the left is all the construction costs. Infrastructure that includes water, wastewater, stormwater, the wetlands, restoration is part of that, and all the amenities that go with neighborhood roads, sidewalks, common area, and then the landscaping for common areas. There is a manufactured home on the land now, and because you're using federal money, that has to be relocated to an in-kind location and in-kind home. And then the construction contingency and contractor markup are just regular construction costs. Soft costs means all the people you need to make this work. So the engineers, surveyors. NEPA means the National Environmental Protection Act review, which is required by all federal funds. And it just is a list of criteria. You have to make sure you're not impinging on a lot of different environmental aspects of the land and the project. Pays for permitting fees, marketing, and realtors commission for the affordable lots, and then the town's insurance during construction. So that's all those costs in the budget. You want to go to the next slide? For Down Street, they are building 5 shared equity homes. That's the proposal. And in order to do that, they need to bring the sale price down to an affordable mortgage, which these days is around $150,000. You can see on this sheet what people can afford if they're just starting out. And that will allow them to cover the subsidies needed to build those. It also allows them to cover their own staffing costs to assist the entire development of homebuyer counseling, education, getting mortgages. So not just the 5 shared equity homes, but also people who want to buy and build on the other lots. So that next slide, that's Down Street. As Karen indicated, project management, 5 years, 5 to 6 years of project management. That will do all the grant compliance, project coordination. I should also say in that construction budget is an owner's representative for the town who would act as the construction project manager, working with the engineer, but representing the town. So the project manager and the owner's rep will work side by side in keeping the project on schedule and budget. The matching funds piece, as Karen explained, is for, you got a USDA grant from the Emergency Watershed Program. It requires a 25% match. That will help restore the stream bank at this location. And then it's a hazard mitigation cost in the grant, which the state is happy to give to communities, wants to give to communities, because the state wants these areas restored just as much as anybody. So these costs make up the application budget. There's the construction. All the soft costs represent all those people who make it happen, plus Down Street and your project manager. Then there's the Down Street subsidies and the emergency watershed grant match. Next slide. So the decisions we expect to hear at the end of the year, beginning of January. It's difficult to say if they'll fund all of it, some of it, none of it. There's a huge demand, especially from this region, but also from smaller towns, Londonderry, Wilmington, other places. And so I think this is probably more your slide, Karen, but I believe your grants committee will go back and look at the options if it's not fully funded. I've made some recommendations to them, just based on my experience currently developing water and wastewater in a number of other areas in the state, and also housing projects. And then they will recommend to the select board the next steps.
Okay, I'll take it. Thank you, Liz. Okay. All right. So that's a lot. That's a lot of information. And hopefully many of you, if not, I hope all of you read the grant application, but I expect that probably most of you did, at least some parts of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this topic by topic, because it's just going to be easier that way. And we'll collect the questions, as I said. So the first topic we're going to touch on is not including the land acquisition in the grant. So if that is a thing you have a question about or a comment about, line up at the mic. And it's okay if there aren't comments or questions about some of these, because that'll move us along. But if you do have a question about that, then now is your time. I'm not seeing any online, Francis Rose? Yeah. Hang on.
This is a very obvious
Okay, so the
question.
first thing is say your name.
My name
before-
is Judy
and-
Cyprian.
And Judy, right to the.
My name is Judy Cyprian. This is a sort of an obvious question, but what's the plan to pay for the land acquisition?
That's a great question, and I could defer to the board on this, or I could,
Yeah, why don't you, yeah.
shall I?
Yeah.
Would one of you like to answer that question? Peter?
Yeah.
This was a discussion that has gone back and forth as to what the grant funds could be used for or not used for. As Karen pointed out, on a very accelerated time frame, the messages that we got from the state changed, sometimes daily. Where it has definitely sugared off to is the fact that while we could use grant funds for acquisition, it would come with the conditions she mentioned with the HUD requirements for all housing, plus we would not see the benefit of the revenues on 50% of the revenues. Those would have to be returned. And so to give us greater flexibility, we decided to put that to the town for a vote. And at our select board meeting on Monday, we warned that it will take place simultaneously on November 4th with the vote for the Central Vermont Career Center bond. So there's no additional election cost. We don't have to hold a special election. It does give everyone in town a chance to vote. Yesterday's Times-Argus had a big headline on the front page on this story. And in the very first paragraph, it said this was an advisory vote. It is not an advisory vote. It is a binding vote. And today's Times-Argus, unfortunately, corrections are never getting the headline as they do on page 1. There is a correction in today's Times-Argus. This is a vote that would authorize the select board to take out a loan of up to $600,000. It does not obligate us to take out that loan. It authorizes us to take out that loan. But that is a binding vote, and it will take place on election day, which is November 4th, I believe. So.
Thank you, Peter. Okay, Michael?
My name is Michael Birnbaum. I live over 3 miles from the proposed development. And to me, the main relevance of this issue of this part of the grant application is that due to the highly questionable purchase prices for the parcels, more about this later, and the multitude of significant concerns about the overall project, there would be risks that voter approval will be denied. The town would then experience delay and possible failure in finding suitable grants which are unencumbered by HUD-type restrictions. So I favor housing development in Plainfield, but not on this land, not at this density, and not at this cost.
Thank you. Okay, next, Elena?
My name's Elena Norway, and I'm so nervous.
We're all friends here.
Yeah. How would it be cost neutral to the town if we get a loan for $600,000? And how many actual lots? Is there 13 at $100,000 that are gonna be sold? And, okay.
Thank you. So in the plan, as it's currently written, as the grant application lays it out, there are the 5 lots for Downstreet, 5 lots for Habitat, right, that's 10. And then there are, if it's 40, then there's still a remaining 30, right? So, if I do my math correctly. But we're really talking about units now. So as we've evolved this conversation with the EDEAC, we're talking about housing units. So we're talking about 40 units, and with Downstreet and Habitat, that's 15. So what that leaves us is 25, right? So if we want to make affordable the other 12 or 13, because there's someone on the land already that we want to relocate, right? So we would keep that person there. That would remain, there would be, if I've done my math correctly, there'd be another 12 lots that could be sold at market or just below market rate value, right? So this answers the second part of the question, which is, how are we not taking on debt? Well, if you buy the land for $600,000 thereabouts, and you're able to sell 12 lots at perhaps $100,000 each, which is not unreasonable. It isn't if they're the bigger lots. Then that's $1.2 million. And I'm not saying, the program for sales, by the way, not defined. The EVEAC still has work to do. That's not here, we don't have that. But this is, I'm just saying, if we did this, just back of the envelope exercise, that's $1.2 million. You pay off $600,000. You're not carrying that loan because you've got some land sales happening, you can pay it off. And then you've got another $600,000 that you can work with. How long might you carry and have to pay interest on the $600,000? Maybe a year? I don't know. But again, that's part of the equations that people have to work out. But that's part of the balance that the board is looking to achieve in staying cost neutral, so that there's actually a benefit of revenue more than just neutral. So that's what we're going for here, okay?
And you think that that would be within a year?
I don't know.
That
Do
we
you
would
know?
get the infrastructure in there, and then we would be able to sell 12 lots? I'm just wondering how much the interest is every year, and,
I don't have that
you know,
information.
so that's what I've been thinking
Yeah,
about.
yeah.
Thank you.
So as I understand it, the loan would be from Vermont Community Foundation, which is generally a grant-making organization, but it's, they take philanthropist money that are looking for opportunities that align with their values, like affordable housing. And they're called philanthropic loans. They're a very low interest rate at like 2%, and oftentimes they'll forgive the interest. So the Vermont Community Foundation created a flood recovery program for communities like Plainfield, and they are looking for opportunities to support communities in that recovery. So that it's basically a philanthropic loan. And that means they could charge no interest, but it certainly rarely exceeds 2%.
Hello, I'm Dr. Philip Parisi. I am a butter to this project. What I'd like to know is, how did the property go from $99,000 to $600,000? And if you're purchasing this land, why isn't there some mechanism to negotiate this price? And I mentioned at town meeting, in all due respect to Bram's commitment as the town clerk, I still think that it's a conflict of interest, even though I know, or I've heard, that there are lawyers involved in this confidentiality, but within those discussions, there should be some public statement about how this is not an exorbitant amount of money, because that's a $500,000 difference. The loan, you explained the loan, thank you, because I've been very concerned about that as well as the other lady. So that's my comment.
Would the board like to comment?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I don't speak Peter Youngbear because I was the liaison with the Vermont Ethics Commission. At the beginning of this calendar year, Vermont required all municipalities to adopt a new municipal code of ethics, which we did. And the timing of that was right at the beginning of when the negotiations on this property and discussion occurred. And with our bond counsel, our advice was, please seek the advice and opinion from the Ethics Commission. So the Select Board and the town clerk jointly submitted an application. They came back to us with an advisory opinion that said we needed to negotiate to get within the range of fair market value. An appraisal was done. Prices were negotiated down quite significantly from what was initially asked, and the resubmission was sent back to the Ethics Commission, and they gave us the go-ahead and said we met this and there is no ethical violation. And we, in confidence, most real estate negotiations are done in confidence. The actual action had to be done in public, and we've done that. We came out of executive session as a select board, and we approved those documents. They're all available online. on the website, you can look at them. But we were very sensitive to the ethical questions, and we did seek and got guidance and approval from the Ethics Commission on the sale and purchase of the property.
Is there a follow-up?
Yeah, it is. I wasn't, but I think I should. Thank you for clarifying the ethical issue. In terms of fair market value, I looked at Redfin just the other day, and I'm going from my memory, but there are 3 parcels of land available back there, way past on East Hill Road. One of them is on East Hill Road. I think it was 1150 East Hill Road. And if I remember correctly, it was 20-something acres, and it was like under $100,000. So I'm really sorry, but you're getting the town ripped off for $600,000. That is not market value. I don't know where you got your information, but it's completely in contrast to what's actually for sale right now. And just to note, that, you know, I'm sorry, Peter, but I really find you were rude to me the other day, and you're rolling your eyes now. This is the time you told me I could come for a public comment, okay? Don't roll your eyes at me. If you don't like what I have to say, that's fine. Okay, well, you know, tell him to take it down. Okay, the point is that that piece of land actually has infrastructure on it. So if somebody wants to build a house, they don't have to do the infrastructure. You know, I really try to be nice, but I can't help it. People are just so unbelievably rude.
If I might. The appraiser.
Turn it
Does
off.
this work?
Yeah.
The appraisal is available online. That was done if you want to look at that.
Yeah, I was just gonna add that the grant requires an appraisal. Even though the grant isn't funding the land, they still are gonna have a lot to say about the purchase. The grant requires an appraisal that's within 6 months of the purchase, and you can't purchase the land until the state kind of releases the grant, okays the final grant. And that relies on what I mentioned, the NEPA, which is the National Environmental Protection Act. The National Environmental Protection Act governs your whole transaction. And you can't actually do anything until that is cleared, and that will have a public comment period, by the way. That will have a whole regulated process. It's called a finding of no significant impact, a request to release funds, then you have a public comment. The town can't buy the land before all that happens, and the appraisal has to be within 6 months. The thing about buying and looking at other pieces of land is that's what the appraisal will do. It will look at those other market values, what did the land actually sell for? And also, every piece of land has to have a NEPA. And a lot of land in Vermont is prime ag soil, and both the federal government and the state will not allow you to build on prime ag soil. So there might be a lot of land for sale, but it's not necessarily buildable.
Okay. I think we should all take a deep breath. Are you on to the next topic or this one?
One clarifying question on this one.
On this topic, go ahead.
My name is Barry Ivy. The clarifying question I have is, the purchase of that property would not occur until the grant was approved, correct?
Yeah, that's a yes.
That's good, thank you. A couple additional, you had a timeline down there?
We're not, I'm.
The timeline earlier in your
Okay,
presentation?
yeah.
Is that later? Or, I wasn't sure where it
Yeah, I
fit in
don't
there.
really see it there. Go ahead and ask me.
Okay, so whenever I see timelines, I think of key points of go, no-go decisions.
Okay.
So I was surprised not to see the select board accepting the grant. Because I read that in some of the minutes from the committee, that there was a process once the grant, hopefully once the grant was approved, it would then be having to go through a process where the select board accepted the grant.
Yeah, so technically, what I should have said on that slide, where I said it was negotiation and the contract conditions.
Right.
Yeah, so there's that process, and then the board would decide, accept or not.
So that occurs because potentially a portion of the grant could be approved not all of the grant.
Yeah.
So then we have to renegotiate as to what's going to be
Yes,
in this proposal and in this project,
exactly.
correct?
Yep, correct,
Okay, good.
correct.
I have a question regarding the bidding process.
Can we wait on?
Is that later?
Where's bidding? Later.
Later, okay.
Yeah.
There was discussion earlier about cost neutral. Keeping this as cost neutral to the taxpayer as possible. So I would like to have someone explain how this project is going to be actively managed from inception through completion to keep it cost neutral. Because I've lived here in Plainfield for over 40 years. And different projects always occur and they always go over the budget, over the estimate. Most recent is the bridge down here. You know, that went through what everyone considered a very thorough and vetting process for estimates, bids and all that. Then what happens? We identify that something happened to the base bridge and it had to be redone. Taxpayers end up ultimately paying for it. So I'd just like to know that process.
Thank you. All right, so we'll, I'm gonna give that to you this, but we're gonna, so I think this is, whoops. Hang on. It's actually a really nice segue into the infrastructure conversation because it's talking about budget.
Karen, question?
Can
Question?
Yes.
So the Zoom hands that are up, is that per section? Yeah, I know you said you wanted to
It
do.
is. We have people
We
on
have
this?
Eli online who wants to
Eli, all
ask
right.
about land acquisition.
Okay, Eli, land acquisition. You're on.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, you can hear me. Okay, great. I have two semi-related questions. One is, in the grant, it said that 12 to 13 units would be sold at market value, which is what you said, which would be used to repay the loan of $600,000. The loan being taken out to pay for the land, does that mean that the other 12 to 13 units could also be sold at below market value? Even if they're still affordable, right? They could also be sold. I also just wanted to draw attention to Janice's question, $100,000 for a quarter acre, which I think is more of her trying to make a point, but I just wanted to have that voiced.
So the pricing has not been set. That was just an example I was giving. So
Great.
So it could be below market, sure, of course.
And then
it had to be that.
And then I also wanted to ask, and just to clarify my question, so like there's 25 lots that we decide what to do with. 12 of those are not included in the 70% AMI, below AMI sales, right? So those could be sold at market value. The other 12 of those 25, and I'm gesturing with my hands, I'm sorry you can't see my video, but the other 12 of those 25 could be sold at below market value. So I just wanted to confirm that. And then Karen, you also mentioned the profits going to the town coffers, and I just wanted to confirm that those funds could also go into a rotating loan fund, which would let people build more cheaply. Is that true?
Yeah, yes, exactly. There's a couple ways to go, and that has to be decided by the advisory group. You know, there's a lot of design programming that has to be done, but there are options for sure.
Yeah, the thing about setting land prices is that, and this goes back to a question someone had earlier about all this happening in a year. The land sales and the kind of program design here will likely take the better part of a year, and no, this all won't be done in 1 year. But we can talk about that when we get into timeline. But the thing about land sales is you want to set prices of the market value at that time. So you can speculate now and come up with examples, but you know, you need an appraisal, you need market values. So it just depends on what the market's doing at that time.
Thanks, Liz. All right, can we move to the next topic? But you have one more? Yeah, okay. So is it this topic, Tammy, or the next? this one. Okay, keep going.
Hi, my name is Jake McBride, and I promise I'm timing myself too. I had a quick question regarding Philip's comment about the price of the land being around $600,000, and how there's other land further up East Hill that he felt like was a similar amount of acreage for a much lower price. And I just wanted to ask the select board and anyone else who might know things like this, what other factors would drive the price of this specific property higher up than something further up East Hill? And I think you partially answered that, the ag soil.
My name is Francis Rose. I can begin to address that. Land's complicated, valuation. It's also complicated. It's not an exact science. Location. Access to utility is at hand. Access to town water is at hand. Access to town sewer is at hand. Walking distance to the village. It's in the village. There's like, to be perhaps designed a staircase down from the bluff onto Creamery Street. This is an integrated village. Talk about then the tenets of smart growth, the tenets of village development. There has been talk about the density of the proposed development. The density of the proposed development right now is like maybe just more dense than the village present is already. Village life there's an unquantifiable value to village life, to being able to walk, to being able to reach your people and your places and your downtown businesses, your library, your opera house. You don't get that from a mile up East Hill Road or 3 miles. So, and coming back to what I said to start, it is a subjective value that we're talking about, and therefore kind of arbitrary. But there's some reasons why it might be valued more great than, say, 1 mile to 3 out from the village. Thank you.
Thank you, Francis Rose.
Anybody else want to? So I wanted to, just before you go, Tammy, I just want to acknowledge that I've not been following what I told you we were going to do. So we were going to collect the questions, and then we're going to answer them at once. So we're still on this topic, on the land acquisition? Okay, and you guys too? Okay, and these are different questions, all of them from already. Okay, we're going to keep going, and then I think in the next topic, because we're going to get into the budget and all of that, we will do what I said we were going to do. But go ahead, Tam.
So Tammy Farnham, I live on Upper Road.
Closer to the mic.
Tammy Farnham from Upper Road. I'm about 1.5 miles from the project.
Lean into it.
It echoes. So it echoes. Just tip it up, that's all. Some people are calling.
Perfect. So I guess I have one question. So you had just noted the HUD requires an appraisal in the 6 months. So what is the town's intent? Because the appraisal you used to sign that purchase and sales agreement was 8 months old.
I'm sorry, so what?
It was 8 months old.
Thank you.
So what is the new intent? Are we getting a new appraisal? What is I don't know if you guys realize that the appraisal was 8 months old.
You've got it folded. But it's conditioned on the grant. So the grant would say you can't.
The grant does require an appraisal. I noted that in the notes that it was required, but it does indicate 6 months as well. But the appraisal that we received was done in.
Right, and the appraisal that we received, which did a comparative market study, is the basis upon which the negotiations were held and agreed upon prices were obtained, and those agreements have been signed.
Correct,
So
but the
that
agreement was signed
all-
out 6 months.
That's what you can do then.
Okay,
I can't tell you what we will do after that.
Okay, so we may have to get a new appraisal is what you're,
I can just help clarify. So what happens with appraisals when they're old is you just ask that appraiser to do an update, since they've already looked at the market data.
so you're gonna do it.
You do an update, the grant will require that, so the town's purchase and sales contract is conditioned upon the grant, and the grant regulatory overlay, flows into that. So the town wouldn't be able to buy it without an update.
Okay, so I do have concerns on the appraisal. You had said that we got an appraisal with comparables, but when I looked at the appraisal, I'm very used to bank appraisals, and that appraisal was a shortened form that didn't have comparables. It was a narrative appraisal, being that it was supposed to be ordered for the town. Is that not what was on the website?
No, there's comps.
There's comps, and as Francis Rose had noted, location, location, location. The comps that were used were from Worcester, Waterbury, Waitsfield, and Middlesex. I saw no adjustments to any of those properties in the sense of wetlands, whether there was not even a picture of the subject property. There was not some pictures of the current property. So how is the condition of this appraisal really determined? Was there some type of quality? Because it's not your standard appraisal.
So appraisal of land, so there's all these different methodologies.
I do.
So a residential methodology is gonna look really different than an appraisal of land methodology.
Okay, so
So-
again, I was a mortgage originator. I know
Right.
what a land appraisal looks like,
Right,
and it
so-
looks the same way.
So land for
The
development.
comparables are the same.
Well, the methodology is slightly different when they go out to the market because there's so few land sales. That really determines what the comparable analysis looks like. They don't get into, like I help redevelop mobile home parks all the time. We'll put $6 million into a water and wastewater infrastructure project, and the appraisal will come back 3.5 million, because they don't look at things like all the land that has wetlands or ravines or constraints. They don't care, they just.
They look at buildable land, and so they do consider that. You
I
can't
mean, I
tell.
think it would be worth, actually, I think it'd be worth that advisory committee, I think this is a really important point. And I think it's really worth people understanding of the appraisal methodology, because it does go to the heart of this issue, and I think it'd be worth the advisory committee having the appraiser come and talk about that a little bit and explain the appraisal. And talk
Or
about
ask for the actual,
analysis.
well, a full appraisal, which consists of the
I think you have the
comparables.
full appraisal, right?
It's not the full appraisal with comparables, comparables, right?
So maybe there's an abridged version.
Most of us are used to, in the sense of getting a bank appraisal, there's not the comparables, there's not the pictures,
I mean,
there's
I'm
not
sure the full
documentation.
appraisal is available, or
Okay, so can we ask for that?
You can ask the EDAC to do it,
Perfect.
to have
The other thing I wanted to point out is that in that appraisal, it was very structured in the sense of the appraiser used 20 to 25 acres because of the lot size of all, the 3 lots. But yet we have 2 purchases and sales agreements, which seems a little odd that we went, if we're doing 2 purchases and sales agreements, that we would structure it with the appraisals accordingly.
So that goes back to what the directions were that were given to the appraiser, and if the appraiser was given the directions to appraise it as built, then they would appraise it as built, which would involve the combination of the lots. They wouldn't just appraise each lot separately.
So that gets to my next question, I guess.
30 seconds.
Way fast, okay, so basically my next question is why did the appraiser use properties in Middlesex and in Barry to do your comparables when you have 4 properties in Plainfield that consisted of 27.42 acres, 74.4 acres, 17.87 acres, and 38 acres and 27.5, all selling within the first 24 months?
I think those are great questions. They're questions that housing development organizations ask their appraisers all the time. You could write them down and the advisory committee could submit them to the appraiser and they could explain that. That comes up all the time.
Thank you. Okay. Next. I have one quick.
2 minutes and 59 seconds.
So I just wanted to also say, I do support development and I do appreciate that.
Tammy, you're a hard act to follow. Paula Emery, I live in the village. I was an earlier member of this group, the ad hoc committee. I lost a lot of neighbors. We won't go into that right now. I want to log this as a potential future thing to discuss. We just met with the Regional Planning Commission to talk about future land use maps, which is related to the adjusted Act 181. If you don't know what about Act 181, look it up. This is the revision to Act 250. And what it's doing is allowing towns and town centers to develop pieces of property within close proximity to a town or village center without going through Act 250. Why? Because we don't want to develop lots of property 3 miles out, 4 miles out, 5 miles out. This revision to Act 250 is actually interesting because it's not loosening things up so much, it's protecting wildlife corridors and it's protecting larger swaths of land from lots of development. And what it's doing is driving traffic into village centers and onto transportation corridors. Think about, look out this window. If you can imagine this, we're on this tiny little point right here. And that's Marshfield. And that's a cliff. Okay? There's really not anywhere else that's in the village that we can develop, but we have Route 2. We have a bus service. People living in that development can take the bus to work. They don't even have to have a car. And I have to say, personally, I've lived here for years on end without a car. Some of you have picked me up while I'm walking to work, so.
Thank you. Steve, are we still on this topic?
I believe so.
All right, go ahead.
I just wanted to say there's an awful lot of fancy jargon being thrown around here, and I'm not sure that in a layman's way, it's making an awful lot of sense. And all I got to say is, you know, a $300,000 home in the village on a half acre, and you can also have a $300,000 home 3 miles out, it's on 40 acres. And it's just this, that's just how those things are. And I will say that this particular situation we're addressing almost makes me thankful for what's going on the national scene, because this one doesn't make me worry at all. And there's one other thing I wanted to say.
This is not how we use a microphone.
This is how to use a microphone. Thank
you. Same topic?
Yes.
Okay, go for it.
My name is Penny Badeau, and I'm from the Martin Meadow Association area. I've lived in Plainfield for 65 years. And my concern is you all keep telling all of us to be respectful and to be kind and to listen. And when Tammy came up, I felt that everybody was already, oh, you know, Tammy's coming up, and you were like, you're already over, and she wasn't. So we're asking the same from you folks.
I get it.
Yeah. All of you be respectful and kind to us. Just because we disagree with this doesn't mean we're bad people. And don't paint us as if we are. We have a right to disagree. I also want to thank whoever put this together, because I wouldn't even be here tonight without this. My husband and I are caring for an 85-year-old woman and an 84-year-old with dementia. We don't have time to sit in front of our computers all day. But if I have a piece of paper, when he goes down the street with one of them, I can sit there watching the other and I can read. You are not reaching the Plainfield residents. There are so many elderly in Plainfield that do not get on Facebook. They don't get on Plainfield People. They don't get on Front Porch Forum. You hear all the time, we need more broadband. There are elderly people in this town that are not a part of this process because you folks are not getting paper in their mailboxes. And therefore, they're not seeing this, they're not hearing this. And just because they're old does not mean they shouldn't be a part of the process, because the taxpayers of Plainfield are going to end up footing some of this bill. Mark my words. And I already can't afford to live here. I'm already looking at moving because the taxes are outrageous. So I ask that when you look at taking loans, that you do what I do. I don't buy a car, I don't buy a house, I don't take a personal loan without knowing the terms of the loan, the interest of the loan. Will there be a balloon payment? Don't take all of this money as if it's free to spend. Run your books like we have to run ours. Take into consideration what the loan is for, who's gonna get left holding the proverbial bag. Because we can't afford to be taxed anymore in this town.
Thank you. Okay. Next topic, infrastructure for the East Village expansion project and the budget. So if you have questions about the infrastructure or anything related to the infrastructure, now would be the time.
Jeremy Sweenard.
Come right up to the mic.
Oh, Jeremy Sweenard. I have concerns about the long-term costs. You can build something, but it takes a lot of money to maintain it. And I don't necessarily think that there's been a good analysis of how much money we're gonna be able to bring in versus how much it will cost. So for me, I think it's rather short-sighted to jump into it for a year without analyzing those costs. You can build a very fancy home, but it costs a hell of a lot of money to keep that home fancy. So if we spend 10 million, it's gonna cost the taxpayers a lot. So I would not really be in support of anything that did not have the zero cost to the town. So if we can't create a strategy that works for everybody, and I feel like the town should be able to vote on that based on the numbers and the analysis that you guys can provide us. But I can barely afford my own taxes. I can't afford to be a landlord.
I have a question, if this is the appropriate point for
Say your
this.
name again, please.
Dr. Philip Parisi, okay, you all remember me. The time frame for the infrastructure that was listed, is that appropriate to discuss now, or do I wait for impact?
Do you want to talk about it? Sure. Okay, that's all.
So, when you talk about time frame for development, I'm sure people in this room know, you have your best case scenario, and then things don't always go as planned. So right now, the time frame is, the engineers have done a schematic design. If the grant is approved, they will continue to full design development and get construction cost estimates, and then go into construction drawings. The construction cost estimate phase is a really critical phase because that tells you if you have enough money or not. So after getting that estimate, if there's enough money, go into construction bidding. The ideal timeline for that is next spring, summer, so you can get a contractor to start. And so you have half of 2026 and all of 2027 to get your infrastructure in.
Okay.
Does that
so
answer your question?
Well, in a way, I think I need to deal with the impact part more than that, because you presented the timeline from 2026 of May to sometime in 2030. So we're looking at about 5 years.
Right.
But I think my question or my statement is more related to impact, so you'll see me again. I don't want to disappoint anybody.
Hi, Paula Emery again. And I just want to know if the addition of these properties and with the infrastructure will bring my water and wastewater bills down at all by adding more people into the system? I'm seeing a lot of head going on.
So that's actually a simple yes. According to our water wastewater commissioner, More users on the system spread the cost of the system, so we lost a number of them with the, how many?
800 for wastewater per year, 800 for water per year.
Yeah, so more users spread the cost. So by connecting folks up to the water wastewater system, everybody's costs go down.
Costs never go down. Costs never go down. Never go down.
All right. You guys over there, if you want to get in line, you can get in line. Sorry, I'm a little punchy. It's been a long, many weeks. Go ahead, Michael.
I'm still Michael Birnbaum, I still live over 3 miles from the proposed development. And I want to talk about access to infrastructure. The primary stated purpose of purchasing the trailer lot from Pigeon Pond Enterprises is to save about $100,000 additional cost of accessing the water and wastewater lines rather than from another side of the property. The accumulated nearly $300,000 cost of acquiring that land, temporarily housing the displaced tenant, demolishing and disposing the trailer, giving up a newly developed lot with zero net gain to the town, constructing a concrete pad, and purchasing a brand new replacement trailer has evolved to a very bad business decision. I'm not even including the huge cost allocation for developing each new lot. Yes, there's a footpath in the design, but that could be relocated. As wasteful as this is, the important point I'm trying to make is that this single decision is emblematic of the multiple pitfalls of this project's groupthink that led us to too many homes crammed together with wetlands on too little land for more than $9 million. And we all know that projects always surprise with myriad cost overruns.
Is that a statement, any question in there, Michael, or is this just a statement?
Just a statement.
Thank you very much. Okay, next.
I'm David Sheckman. I live on New Hamburger Road in Plainfield. I just want to say first, very few people contest the need. So I just want to make sure and put that out there.
Say more about that, I don't understand what you just said.
I don't think very many people contest that there is a need for more housing and more affordable housing. What people contest is whether this is the best way to do that, this project, this grant. So that's just my introduction. When it comes to the, don't put this,
I'm getting it, I'm trying to get it, David, so.
This kind of thing is hard for me, so.
I have one of those faces that when I'm processing information, I can't
Okay,
remember.
I'm trying to make.
It's not personal.
I'm trying to
Go ahead.
preface my remarks
Go ahead.
by saying I'm in favor of increased housing in Plainfield. Now, I'm going to try to talk about budget items. It's a little hard to look at that list and know exactly where various comments fit in.
You want a copy?
No, that's not the point.
Okay.
The point is that there are comments that are not directly related to any of the items on that list. They're kind of in and out and up and down because everything is interrelated. So if I'm speaking out of turn, I apologize. So budget. I'll start with the market rate lots. My understanding from looking at the grant is that the budget per lot, and we don't really know how many lots there's going to be because we're now talking about units. We also don't know how many units there's going to be. We only know that we're promising 40 units. It could be much more than that. Can't be less than that. So if there's ADUs, if there's more duplexes, up to 4plexes are permitted use, so. If it's 40 lots, the cost, I think, was $220,000 a lot, something, 216, 220, something in that neighborhood. If the market rate lots are sold for 100,000, which I think is very optimistic, but I don't know, I think it's optimistic. That means that there's well over $1 million in subsidy that's going to those market rate lots. That's just $1 million, public money that's going to market rate lots. Personally, I'm not that comfortable with that. That seems like an awful lot of money, $100,000 a lot, that somebody is getting advantage of who actually may have plenty of money. So that's one thing. The affordable, the 13, I think. That's time. The 13 affordable lots that are not part of the Down Street project or the, you're saying my time's up?
Yeah, let us respond to the first part.
So, yes, a couple things about development that's being done with public money. First of all, construction costs now are astronomical. They not only inflated 10% during COVID, and then they leveled off from 23 to 24. They are back up in the 5 to 7% range. It is costing $500,000, $600,000 to build a home now. So, right.
I'm a builder, or I
Right.
was.
So, you know. But the other thing I want to say is that all of our infrastructure is subsidized by the federal government. It always has been, and unfortunately, it won't be pretty soon. So all of the flood recovery was subsidized. All of the wastewater lines in all of our towns and villages is subsidized. Very low interest loans. All of the drinking water infrastructure, half of that is a grant from the EPA to ANR to our towns and villages. So this is no different, it's just a different source of funds subsidizing the infrastructure. Same thing.
Yeah, I get that.
Okay, thank you.
I guess I'll drop my other.
That's okay. Sarah.
Hello, Jared Birchmore, resident of the village.
Use the mic, please.
Okay, sorry.
Just, you can raise it up here.
There we go. So I don't have a question, I just have a comment. When speaking about infrastructure for this village expansion project, I think it's really important to remember that when we're talking about trying to replace and replenish the housing stock that we are losing from the floods of 2023 and 2024, being able to do that in a way where multiple houses and multiple lots are able to be a part of one infrastructure expansion makes sense. That means that those costs are shared and spread across a wider, array of lots, and it means that it is a smarter financial decision for the town. If, like we are saying, like the EVAC was charged with trying to rehouse those that were impacted by the floods or restore some of our lost housing base, this is a way to do that financially makes sense. And the other thing that I just wanted to say around infrastructure and the budget is that, I lost it. Well, yeah, I'll just leave it at that. I think it's important to remember that we are trying to find and chart a path forward for Plainfield that maintains its vitality, and doing so in a way that increases the housing stock by this much in one fell swoop is a good investment for the town to be able to have a prosperous, viable future. Thanks.
Gary Graves, and I just wanted to say, as far as the water, last I knew there were no problems. We had plenty of water. But as far as the wastewater plant, once you get about 80% usage, the federal government's going to come in and say, wait a minute, you people need to start planning expanding that plant. And if you think that's gonna be cheap, you got another thing coming. It's gonna be another multi-million dollar expense. And that's on even less, because right now it's set up for just the users pay. Everyone in town, if they want to, can vote on any expansions, but the users pay. And that is gonna be astronomical for the people in the village.
Wondering if our wastewater commissioner has a comment on that topic?
So currently, we stand to lose many units that we've not taken offline at the moment. So the people who are in the buyout program will will take those buyouts likely, and then we no longer gain the revenue from that user base. So it's my opinion, and with discussions with the chief operator, that we have the capacities to support this, and we will still have remaining capacity to be below that 80% mark. And while still providing excellent service, Tristan is well-respected operator, and I trust his assessments immensely. He's been awarded twice this year, and if he says that it shouldn't be an issue, I wholeheartedly have his back.
Thank you. All right, Kirsty?
Hi, is this good? My name's Kirsty Grant. I'm both an abutter and on the advisory committee. And I have a question that I guess is more for the select board. There have been multiple iterations of the layout map, whatever its technical term is, but there has not been public input on the current layout. And I think it's important to get public feedback before we spend funds, should we get this grant, with permitting, designs, before we enter into the next phase of planning where we're spending dollars. What will the public feedback on the design look like?
Does the board have a comment?
Yeah, the reason for the EDIAC group is to take those ideas from the public, however they can get there. People can come to the meetings or send notes to them. But we are trying to give that committee, which is a formal committee, the authority to make these decisions. We just don't have time to delve into it in that kind of detail. And also, I don't believe we have the final engineering done, which is expensive. We've paid for a lot of it with grants so far, but we don't want to go through a long chain of engineering fees to find out that it doesn't go. So we're trying to take this one step at a time. And it's a lot of decisions to make, and it's just difficult. But I hear you. You want more input.
So would it be correct to say that the select board would like the advisory committee to get more public feedback if we get the grant before we move on to spending more engineering funds?
Yes, I think we want that committee to do the job that we've asked them to do, which is budgeting and timeframes and design, but they don't have final design yet. That's my understanding. That's what they've told us.
Yeah, I guess hopefully there wouldn't be final design because there hasn't been public input recently on the design, but I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you. I hear you.
Okay. Thank you. Ray?
Ray Carter. I am curious about the infrastructure in regards to local business folks. Has there been discussion about a priority of if infrastructure development was to move forward, that there would be a priority given to local businesses to be able to be a part of those contracts? I'm just curious if that's been any part of the discussion in infrastructure.
So, unfortunately, with federal procurement, you have to do an open, transparent, level playing field. And that doesn't mean that word of mouth is not very powerful. And you can set up your procurement criteria with in a certain way called best value procurement. And that can involve experience, references, knowledge of the area, things like that. So that's all allowed. Any contractor would have to have experience complying with federal regulations like Davis Bacon and bonding and something called HUD Section 3, which is another labor regulation. So, I encourage everybody I work with to spread the word locally, and it does have to be advertised on the Vermont Bid Registry, but you can certainly direct the market outreach a certain way. Thanks.
You can lower that if it's too much. That's helpful, yeah. Hi, Liz Peralt, and I live on Gray Road, and I'm also a volunteer on the advisory committee. So I just want to address something that Kirsty just spoke about, asking about the design of the proposed development. And I was under the impression that we were unable to make any design changes because of the grant and the timelines, and it is what it is, and that's where we have our numbers and which makes sense to me. So the fact that we are talking about, oh yes, there'll be an opportunity to adjust the design feels really false, but maybe it's my misunderstanding. Because once the grant, the application goes in, they're basing their decision on what they give us, whether they give us anything on this particular design. So if we go in and try to make any real changes to the design, it we'll be in breach of what we agreed to. So that's one thing. I have a bunch of things. I just want to keep going, and then if you feel like still addressing what I just said, have at it. But I just want to make sure I get in when I need to, in my 3 minutes. I have a question for the select board. Are there town-owned properties within the village currently? Land.
Yeah.
There are.
There are.
There's land that the town owns currently. Is it more than just the rec field?
Yeah, there's a parcel, I think it's 3 acres behind the old high school.
Yep.
There's a parcel behind the old high school.
Okay.
It's a wetland, so it's a problematic site. But there's still talk about doing something there.
What class wetland?
I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
There's a tiny piece that's behind at the park and ride, behind the shelter. A little triangular shaped piece between the cemetery and there, which is a ravine, but that's owned by the town. We had some land years ago donated to us, but that was washed away, so that's not there along the brook. Off the top of my head, I can't think of any others.
Okay. All right. So I thought there was another piece, but maybe I'm wrong.
Might be.
Okay, I gotta get my glasses on, sorry. Of the 39 units, that is claimed to have been, that were lost, not claimed, I'm sorry, that were lost in the flood, how many of those units were outside of the village? Is a question. And then I believe, the proposal we reviewed recently on our committee, or advisory group, I believe the housing units that I saw, the final number was 45 at that point, because of multiple units on parcels of land. And that's all I had. See, I knew I needed all 3.
You want to Okay. So the design parameters I don't know, I mean, I recommend to the grants committee that no more work happen when the grant is going in, because you have to submit something with a cost estimate. And Rick Burrows is working with the cost estimator and the engineer, so we had to get a design estimated. But that doesn't mean within those parameters, within that dollar amount, you can't make adjustments. You certainly, wouldn't want a design that goes over that cost, because that's gonna be the maximum. But the grant is saying the town is saying to the state, we are going to replace what we lost in the flooding events, which I understand is about 39 units. So the intent was to replace those housing, and this is disaster recovery money, so the case statement for the grant is the town needs to replace lost housing. That's the case statement. That's where the number comes from, that's driving the grant. If for some reason there were some determination or some event that meant the total buildable area couldn't hold 40 units, and that's not just because of preference of the town, or some physical environmental reason, then you could go back to the state, or cost, you could go back to the state and say, it's not feasible to build 40 units, and have that conversation then. So there's certainly opportunities for design changes, but you have to stay within the bounds and the parameters that you told the state.
And then what was the other? I don't know, but Liz, in the conversations we've had, it is not unusual for projects to go through many changes because of various factors, correct?
Well, I mean, many changes can mean a lot of different things. And most of them are cost driven. So that's also budget management. So when you're going along in a development, if any of you have ever been involved in a development or building a house, there's gonna be surprises, there's gonna be cost overruns, and yeah, you have to adjust. But all of those are discovery and investigation, and you learn them, and then you adjust before you end up in that place. So that's just the process of good development best practices.
Okay, thanks.
There was another
The other
question that
question
Liz
was
had.
how many outside of the village, do you know?
There's 9 along the Brook Road,
Okay.
outside the village.
And
So 30 in the village.
right, there was
30
one
in
more
the
question.
So did you all get that? Sorry. So number of units, 30 in the village, 9 along Brook Road that were lost.
That's the number.
All right, moving on.
I'm Nancy Ellen, I live on Brook Road. I just had a comment to make. I'm responding to folks who have come up with concerns about money stuff, like budget, and so that's what I'm responding to. I have those concerns as well, I share them. I think probably most of the people in this room would say that they share those concerns, times being what they are. But I also want to highlight something that Karen said at the very beginning of this presentation, which is basically that if we do nothing, our taxes are going up. They're going up if we do nothing. So while there's a lot of goodwill and good feeling behind this project in terms of we're trying to come together as a town, we're trying to, keep our town alive, we're trying to create space for, people who were displaced. Part of it's money too. That's also part of keeping our town alive. This project has a very good chance of offsetting or obviating entirely the costs that will be incurred if we do nothing. So I think that's something that we should all keep in mind. That's it.
Thank you. You want to raise your mic a little bit?
Tammy Farnham. I just wanted to know, I know this question is about infrastructure and our budget, but I think it's important because I think the grant, what we're proposing is different than what the overall grant is expecting. So can you guys speak in reference to that? Because I think the budget shows like infrastructure of the water and the things that were part of that project. But in the end, I believe the grant is actually expecting houses. So I wonder if you could talk about that.
Well, program design. I'm gonna let you know. Yes, yeah, sure.
So as I understand the program design, it is to provide the lots for people to build on them. The state does not need to know how that's gonna happen, but they do need to know there will be 40 homes constructed by the end of the grant period, which is 5 to 6 years. 5 at least, 6 at most. How that's gonna happen is a program design question. So that means there will be lot sales to eligible buyers who will be pre-qualified by a bank. Down the street has a homeownership center, does home buyer education and counseling, and assists customers with the process of finding a mortgage product. And it would be a construction loan, obviously, and then taken out by permanent mortgage. So there's systems in place in Washington County to support people in doing that. For the affordable units, for people who are building market rate housing, they will need to navigate this process of going to a bank and applying for a construction loan, getting the cost estimates, all the stuff you do when you need a construction loan from a bank. So that's and I would recommend to the town that they have purchase and sales contracts for the lots that are, have all those conditions spelled out. And require them to build the home by a certain period of time.
I would like to add too that the funding, in the CDBG-DR, the housing, the category that we're in is infrastructure for affordable housing. We saw that in the early slide. So that's where this lands. So the intent is housing. But the money is gonna put the infrastructure in the land so that we can do the housing. Okay, please, Rose.
Rose Paul, my comment is really about stormwater infrastructure and then a little bit about wastewater. In terms of the stormwater infrastructure, I really think we're cramming too many lots on this land. So for example, there are 2 tiers of lots proposed just above some very steep slopes that already have gullies on them that go down to Creamery Street. There's houses below that on Creamery Street. And to have these 2 tiers of houses just above those steep slopes, I think it's asking for trouble. And then there's 2 tiers of houses proposed on the frontage of this property on Main Street. And that's a slope, it's not as steep a slope. But the bottom tier of houses is proposed to be snugged right up against the slope. Now, in this day and age with the kind of rainfall we're getting, I think you'd be crazy to put a house snugged up with its back or whatever against a slope. It's not good planning. So those are examples of overbuilding the number of lots. And I think they don't suit this property. And I also just want to comment that Goddard is proposing development, the 12 rental units they want to put into the inn. I don't think the inn has 12 wastewater allocations now. So those will be new allocations. And we need to think about all the housing that will be coming online. And again, do we want to have it all on this subject property, or should we take into account others? Thank you.
Thank you, Rose. Just to clarify, there are already four apartments in what was the hotel, so it would be another 8 rentals in that space, a net of 8. Rentals are good, but homeownership is also really good. And I would say that we need all of it. We don't just need one or the other. We're in a housing crisis. in this county and in this state. So all good solutions are important to the whole mix of the housing continuum, so people can start somewhere and be able to move up and in and downsize out and allow families to have our big houses so that when we get older, we can live in a smaller property. Like, we need movement in the housing system, and we don't have that right now. So every option here that we can develop is a good piece to get us all moving so we can have that vibrancy and that diversity. Yeah.
Talk about stormwater. You wanna talk about stormwater?
So the stormwater regulations of the state, if anybody owns a property, it's 3 acres or more, that has impervious surface, just got very stringent. So the stormwater infrastructure, and Rick can probably speak to this too, is very sophisticatedly designed. And all of the stormwater will be directed to retention areas on site, which is a green design. The alternative would be like saying to the state, well, we can't treat it all on site, so we're gonna pay some mitigation fee to not have to do that. That's not the plan here. The plan is to retain it on site, to treat it on site. And the wetlands is a part of that in terms of restoring the wetlands. The wetlands have been paid, as I understand it, which is a negative impact on wetlands. Restoring them allows them to do their job, which is to be part of the overall watershed system for collecting water. So the stormwater design is also, an opportunity to have the engineer explain that. There's a lot of detail there. The permit process is rigorous now. It's actually a pain in the neck, and it's hard. It makes development more expensive, makes it harder, but it is more rigorous.
Thank you. Lynn?
My name is Elena,
And then-
Norway.
And when you're done, I'm gonna go to Tom, who's been on Zoom with his hand up, so we'll go there.
Yeah, I was gonna wait till the other comments, but then I heard the conditions of the grant and needing to have 40 units built in 6 years, right? Is that what I heard? So what happens if it's not done? What happens?
So it's always easy to speculate what happens if any of these things goes wrong. And that's always the question when you do development. What happens if any of these things goes wrong? But there's risk, and then there's mitigation, ways to mitigate risk. So we know that between Down Street and Habitat, 15 of those homes are going to be built. The Habitat has signed a memorandum of understanding, Down Street has written a letter, they're gonna be built. So that leaves 12 of the affordable ones, and then 12 of the market rate ones. So that's why there's, to mitigate risk, there's money in the budget for marketing, and there's money in the budget to bring on a realtor, to do a request for proposal for a realtor to help market the lots. And the demand and the need, because the need is so high, the demand is high to find buildable lots in walkable village centers.
Yeah, okay, so I'm trying to build a house right now, and I have the lot, and I have all the utilities, and I'm actually an electrician, so I have a lot of contacts. And I had everybody lined up, and then the carpenter backed out, so then I'm delayed. And I think there is a very big shortage of people being able to do actual construction work in the area. So I'm talking about what happens if we aren't able to do what we said we were gonna do in the grant. I want an answer, like, do we have to pay the grant back, or what?
So, it's a conversation with the state, and you would not be out of compliance, you wouldn't have done anything wrong. It wouldn't be like if you went ahead and bought the land before the NEPA was finished, that would be a violation. Not achieving the goal after you've been talking with the state and keeping them apprised of everything and letting them know that some wildly unforeseen events have occurred would not be a violation. The grant would likely be amended. But I will say that you'll have economies of scales when you have people working together. If you want, if you have 12 people and the project manager could assist with this, getting people's designs together and putting out a larger bid opportunity for a contractor, so it might be more than just house by house. It would be, a number of houses together. There's also factory-built housing now, it's high quality, modular housing that's high quality. Well, some is expensive and some is not, a lot is built in Massachusetts and Maine. Those price points are anywhere from 200,000 up. So there's some very high efficiency. Actually, Efficiency Vermont has been involved in designing a zero energy modular home. So there's a lot of more market options there.
Okay, and then I had one more question, which was, if we go over budget, where do we get the money for that?
Yeah, so there are other grant opportunities for the town, which I recommended to the committee that they, start to think about, as cost estimates come in. If cost estimates are higher, there are grant opportunities from a program called Northern Borders Regional Commission, which is for infrastructure, especially if it's in support of economic development. So Northern Borders Regional Commission is paying for infrastructure all over Vermont, as well as health needs and a bunch of other stuff. And they have an application in June, by which time we will know a lot more about your costs. The Vermont Housing and Conservation Board is another option for the affordable lots. So by subsidizing the affordable lots more, you can offload some of the cost pressure on the market rates unit lots. So there are other grant options, and by the time those deadlines come up, there will be a lot more data available.
I want to go to Tom Beal online. Your turn.
Comment from Pat too.
All right, here we go. Tom, are you there? Okay.
200.
I think what Pat is doing is.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Hi, thank you. My question actually is very similar and aligned with the previous speakers, and I'm not sure I heard a precise answer to it. As I understand it, what I heard was that the project, including the full completion of the 40 units construction, would need to happen within that five to 6 year timeframe. And I'm trying to understand if we have 15 units that are being covered by Habitat and Downstreet. So then we have in the ballpark of, say, 25 different individual projects. And after those property owners have purchased their property, essentially, it is their projects. It's in their hands at that point. And I know there's been talk of support to them. My question is, again, I'm just trying to understand if those 40 units, if they fail to be built within that five-year timeframe, which seems, to me at least, challenging if you're talking about 2 years of construction for infrastructure, and then so you have about 3 years for, let's say, 25 different properties to be fully built and delivered. Is the full grant, I'm not sure I heard an answer to this, let's say 35 are built, or 39, or 28, does the full $10 million grant have to be repaid by the town? Or is that proportionate?
No.
And how is that, what happens in the reality of changing economies, changing people's circumstances?
Got it, I'm gonna let Liz answer. Go ahead.
So I think it's easy to speculate about stuff not going right. And ultimately, I think what people want to know is what is the risk to the taxpayers, right? That's what you want to know. So as long as you're complying with the grant, and if you get to the point where you just can't find those last 5 people, the town can go to the state and negotiate, a deal where the town says, we just can't meet it, but we promise to deliver those additional 5 units somewhere else in the village with another grant. We will make all best efforts. There would be a negotiation and an amendment, and I can't stand here and represent the state. I'm just speaking from experience, and that is the nature of how these things go. But I would just encourage, I get that you have a concern about risk because of the bridge. This grant functions very differently in terms of having a project manager who has the expertise to manage the process at each step of the way, and not get ahead of yourselves and not get out there on a limb. I don't know if somebody was
Pat
mentioning it.
Moulton has her hand up.
Okay, Pat.
Pat?
Hi, thank you. I just want to reiterate what Liz was just saying by adding the fact that in the 51-year history of the Vermont Community Development Program, otherwise known as the Community Development Block Grant Program, there has never been a situation where a town has had to repay the state of Vermont. The state will work with the town to do whatever it can to achieve its goals within the HUD requirements the state is under.
Thank you, Pat. Pat Moulton is the Regional Recovery Officer at the state. She has been the person who's been supporting all of our efforts for recovery since we were hit.
But she was the former commissioner.
But she's former commissioner of the Agency of Commerce and Community Development, so she.
Actually, that was Secretary Karen, sorry to be.
Secretary, oh my God, sorry, Pat, sorry,
Secretary.
Secretary.
35-year history of economic development in Vermont. I've done these.
Yeah, okay, we're gonna move on, keep moving. George, please.
Hi, George Springston. I've got two infrastructure comments. The first is regarding the wetlands. I'll preface that by saying that I worked for 7 years professionally in the wetlands field, evaluating thousands of wetlands around the northeastern US and at least hundreds of wetlands around Vermont. And I know quite a bit about wetland functions and values. And I know that wetland across the street from where I live quite well. And it was hayed for many years, but it has revegetated with basically wet meadow vegetation just fine, and it serves important functions for wildlife habitat, especially grassland nesting birds. And it's very important as its stormwater function. Wetlands like that slow down the movement of stormwater in a way that engineers would love to see. And it's a very important component now of the way water flows over the landscape above the village, and it slows down the flowing of water. So whatever development is done in that project needs to preserve that wetland area because it is serving as very green infrastructure, because it's literally green. And it does not need restoration. I don't know where the committee got that idea that it needs restoration. There's work that can be done there in terms of controlling invasive species. But what it needs to be is to be preserved along with a 50-foot buffer around it and not encroached on by a project that is really too large. And the second point has to do with the stormwater infrastructure. I think there's a misunderstanding because in all of the plans and documents that I've seen, the infrastructure that's being planned is the roads. So the lovely infrastructure they're going to put together to handle stormwater runoff, to keep it from being too intense, it's probably really good. Our state developed very good stormwater regulations in around 2018. But that's not going to include the houses, the accessory buildings, and the driveways. And those will have many thousands of square feet of impervious surface.
20 seconds.
And it's not going to be treated. So you're going to have some stormwater issues there that will be very serious, perched right above the village. Thank you.
So the wetlands plan is everything, George, that you discussed. It does have the 50-foot buffer. It has been discussed with the state. As you know, the state has become more stringent about governing wetlands. And from what I've seen, the development doesn't encroach upon it, but rather respects it and creates that it formalizes that buffer on a plat. So that's part of the permit process. And then the stormwater, I believe, has not been fully designed yet because it is waiting for these other elements to be filled in, but is also under discussion right now with the state. So all of this is very active. Yeah, I don't think it's on the drawings yet, I haven't seen it either. But the engineer, Paul Botsberg from Engineering Ventures is the guy doing this. And I would recommend that the advisory committee have the engineer come and discuss it as the plans develop more.
And I would say that, we are very fortunate to have George and Rose in our community, people who have experience around all this and a lot of knowledge. So when those conversations are happening at the advisory, I think that's a topic you want to have input into. You should be at those meetings and input. Because this is fluid, this is moving, and it does take all of us and the experience we have and our good ideas, right? It's not limited to the small group working on it. They're the people who've stepped up, but if you want to get in and have your knowledge applied, please do. Please, please. Okay, yes?
2 quick questions. I understand that if we get approved for the grant and we don't take it, that could put us at risk for other grants from the state of Vermont. So is it a known quantity that if we get approved for the grant, we're going forward?
Let me just clarify, if you were to approve, if the grant were approved and you rejected it this time around, and then the town went back for a similar proposal, that would be looked upon as skeptical. It's not like statewide, you wouldn't get any other grants. It's the CDBG program. If you went back and applied, if the town came back with another proposal, the state would look at it skeptically and say, well, we offered you $9.2 million, you didn't take that, why is this any different? It would be a harder case to make.
So if we get approved from the grant, it's pretty much a go?
Well, not necessarily, the select board has to approve another resolution, except whether they accept it or not. It would be more problematic, but that's I think what this process is for, is to let everybody know, this is the intent. It's not the final word, but it is the intent, and that's what you're telling the state, it is the intent.
Okay, and I noticed on one of the slides, it was talking about priority would be given to those who had been flooded out and XYZ, and those who have done a lot for the town. Can you quantify that? Can you define that?
That's a select board, that was the select board's charge. It was in the charge. I copied it right off of what they had written to the advisory committee. And so
Can you guys quantify that?
I would defer.
Define it? I mean, I want to know if we're just picking and choosing people that we want to. I want to know who that qualifies.
We're not allowed legally.
Who's going to qualify?
It's less clearly defined than it is acknowledged. That, I think it was Paula who said that we're standing on the corner of Plainfield. There's East Montpelier and Marshfield, thank you. In spitting distance, many of whom identify as Plainfielders and who hustle for this town. We haven't defined it. It wasn't our intention to define or exclude, simply to acknowledge the concerns of those who want to be included, who feel already a part of, that this program could be for them also.
Got it. One quick question. The folks that are up for FEMA buyouts, I assume a lot of them also had flood insurance. Do we have guarantees that these people are going to rebuild in Plainfield? Do we know that they really are, is what I'm asking? No, okay.
Hi, my name's Eliza. I grew up on Lower Road, and I grew up with the understanding that if I worked, I would be able to afford housing. And probably for the better part of 20 years, I've been seeking long-term housing in this area, and I still don't have that secured. So my questions and comments are, first of all, thanking everyone for being here, because for you all to take your time to listen to each other is just a beautiful thing in and of itself. For all the people who are organizing to create affordable housing, I can't think of like a more just thing. Housing is such a fundamental part of being on this planet. And I would just like to see a quick show of hands of how many folks in this room own their homes. And if you could keep your hands up if you are questioning whether you support this development because of the potential risks. Because they're out there, and I work in the trades, I've been a carpenter for about 12 years, and construction's expensive, and so it's super valid to have fears. But I would just ask those folks to also think about the sense of security you have in owning your home, and the comfort you have in your home, and if we can all take on a little bit of the risk to ensure that some of our community members might be able to have a sliver of that, might be able to have a sense of their own security and be neighbors with each other, it's worth it. So that's all. Thank you.
Michael Billingsley, Emergency Management Director. I didn't see anywhere to properly drop this question in, so I'm just going to wing it. It seems very obvious from some of the writing in the grant that there is a focus on 2023 as the flooding incident that is the focus of why we are trying to recover funds through the Community Development Block Grant. That particular flood made 3 homes unlivable or partially unlivable, and they are in buyout. There are several other homes that were damaged and have been completely repaired, and people are living in them again. But the grant goes right on to say that there are multiple homes, and it is as if the 2024 flood is being posing as the 2023 flood. And so the question is, all these homes which genuinely were lost, and all these people who genuinely were displaced or are living in damaged homes right now because they can't afford to go anywhere, how do you tie those two, how are those 2 floods tied together in this grant? In other words, how do all the 2024 losses, which are true, how are they used in justification of the 2023 funding opportunity?
That's a great question. Yeah, it's been the question we've been working on hard because, you know, the truth of it is, 2023 wasn't as bad, right? We know 24 was more devastating, but we also know that the damage that we incurred in 23, we didn't even barely get to do the repair work before we got slammed again. So we hardly had gotten any of the FEMA money. We hardly had gotten, so we weren't even back on our feet and we got slammed with another wave, right? So writing the grant was telling the story of the setup of what 23 was and how what it did really made worse what happened in 24 because we weren't in any shape to be able to weather what came. And there was a lot of conversation, honestly, at the beginning of this grant process when we heard it was tied to 2023, the perception at the state even was, well, Plainfield didn't have any damage in 23. That was Montpelier and Barry. But the fact was, Michael, you were here, and you know that there were 112 FEMA claims, IA, right, the individual assistance, and we know that there were 13 homes that were inspected for buyout. Now, only 3 of them decided to go through, but 12 of them could have applied. They didn't. So there was significant damage. But there was this perception, well, it wasn't as bad as Barry and Montpelier. The fact is, we never recovered from 23, and then we got slammed. So we worked on trying to tell the story of the whole picture without, you know, you want to meet the criteria of the grant, right? You need to do that legitimately. But you can't separate the 2 things because it's one community and this devastation happened again and again, twice. So we have made this grant, say it the way it says it, and for those of us that have been on the inside, but it's like, well, that's not quite right. We know the details of what really happened, but it is quite right because it was the setup. It was the bellwether. And Liz wrote it, so there you go.
Yeah, I mean, true confessions of a grant writer, it's hard to come in from the outside and really grasp. I asked the community to tell me the story over and over to really grasp like the nuances of 23 versus 24. And so what I did when I got the grant was just, I didn't ask for any data from 24. I'm just looking at the data from '23, and I've checked over and over to make sure we're talking about the data of '23 and that FEMA IA claims, your federal highway claims, your FEMA public assistance claims, all of that is the third highest after Barry and Montpelier, the third highest in Washington County from 2023. So I tend to be a literal person. I probably haven't embellished enough in the grant application to explain what Karen just said. The '23 flood did undermine buildings and infrastructure to the point where it may not have collapsed in '23, but it set up the terms and conditions for '24 that was more devastating. So in the long run, the '23 flood did cost you more.
If it would be helpful, because I personally know each house by house impact, I'd be happy at some point to go through the wording so it does actually match the experience of the people on the state, if it's necessary or helpful.
If you have time to do that before Monday, that'd be great. I would love to have that written down so I can incorporate it on Monday.
I've made
The
some
grant
notes,
is due
yeah.
on Tuesday. That would be awesome.
Now, the second question I have, which is, again, a technical question like that one, is, and I asked this to Peter earlier, maybe not the right way, but in the grant application, there is also a second project, which we haven't gotten to talking about much, but which is called the Martin Meadow Road project. It's actually not Martin Meadow Road that's being fixed, it's the properties adjacent to Martin Meadow that go down to the Winooski River. And as a consequence, I was wondering if the impact on the grant changes at all if you do say that the work being done is in the floodplain. In other words, right now it says it's not, but I was wondering, there are many places where it asks is the work in the floodplain, and I keep seeing no, and I was just wondering, will it impact our being able to get this grant if in fact it isn't? I mean, excuse me, it is in the floodplain.
What was on the report? I mean, we did the verbiage.
So the section that is being examined for that match is eligible. And the other thing is you have a USDA grant to pay for most of it. USDA has the same NEPA requirements that HUD has. They're identical. So I've asked the state if they'll accept the USDA NEPA. I haven't heard back yet. I don't see why they won't because they work together all the time. So the fact is you're mitigating the hazard. So you're not NEPA is all about having an adverse impact. Is your project going to have an adverse impact? And the answer here is clearly no, it's not going to have an adverse impact. It's going to mitigate the hazard, which is the intent of the NEPA. It would be different if there were like fragile plants and species that the work was going to threaten more.
Yeah.
Then you would have a problem.
I will try to put that in writing too, because there are certain places where I think clearly the floodplain is being restored but not widened, and as a consequence, I don't know how the state views that. And I might have a comment about that.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you.
Liz, there's a comment up there from Pat.
Pat, do you have a comment?
It's just written in the chat.
Sorry, I was commenting on the question about allocation, why the emphasis on 2023, and the answer is because Congress, in their action to allocate the funds, tied it directly to 23 and not to 24.
Right, we had said that earlier. Thank you, thanks for that. Yeah, so let's see where we are, Ron. Can we,
And the second
is this
item,
still
if you want to know.
infrastructure budget? Go, come on,
Okay.
let's go.
I stayed under 3 minutes both times.
Go ahead, keep going.
You asked me last time whether it was a statement or a question.
Yes, sir.
And I realize now I do have a question of what I said.
Go ahead.
From what I said before, and I wonder if it's too late to back out of purchasing the trailer lot. Is it correct in terms of how I analyzed it, that it originally was going to be a savings of $100,000, and now it's going to be a net cost of $300,000?
She's the trailer expert, I'm gonna give you the list here.
No, I think it's really, what you're asking is for an alternatives analysis. And that would be a question for the engineer, because I am not an engineer. I didn't look at the reason why that law was necessary. I assume it's for infrastructure timelines, because you said that, but I would want to know from the engineer, here's the rationale, here's the alternatives analysis. You know, that would be, I think you can back out of buying the trailer lot, if that's your question. I just don't know, like, you know, if the engineer can do the alternatives analysis within a certain amount of time. I have no idea, but we can ask you.
Can I clarify?
Yeah.
So the lot is very uniquely situated. It allows for a gravity-fed sewage system, period. That's the only spot on the entire combination of parcels that would allow for gravity-fed sewage. So it's not just the installation cost, it's the management cost of pump maintenance on that sewage that would otherwise have to flow uphill for the life of the property. And so therefore, it is not just the upfront cost, but also the maintenance cost that is being looked at, and that's expensive and would quickly add up to worse for the town to not do it.
Thank you. Okay, we're gonna move on to sub-grant for downstreet housing and community development. Any questions or comments regarding that piece? Okay, anybody online? Everybody's good with that? Woo! All right. The option for Habitat for Humanity, and that, we didn't discuss it, but the idea here is that if we get the full grant, then we would be able to grant the land. We have an option to grant the land to Habitat to help make that a more affordable situation for them, part of the grant. So if we didn't get it, the option goes away. So it's just one of those. They're very interested to do it. The board was interested to do it, and our attorney is looking at it to make sure. And Andy Robinson has his hand raised. So Andy, I'm going to you.
Thank you, Karen. First of all, watching this for 2.5 hours on Zoom is a project. So shout out to everybody who was on Zoom and is hanging in here. I want to thank everyone for their thoughtful comments. I'm going to speak in favor of this proposal, and specifically, I'm excited that Downstreet and Habitat are both in. These are well-organized, respected, thoughtful organizations. They're going to be amazing partners for this. And frankly, they don't go into projects like this without doing a lot of due diligence on their end. So I am more comfortable with this because they are participating. They add a lot of value, and not the least of which is some of the project management work they do, recruiting tenants, all of it. The other point I would make here quickly is many of you were at Plainfield Forward and some of those programs at the Hay Barn. We had a lot of experts in the room. We had people from Housing Conservation Board. We had people from the state of Vermont. We had people from Department of Natural Resources. And they said our magic secret sauce in Plainfield, and this was affirmed multiple times, is that we have water capacity and we have sewer capacity. And, you know, our operator said we're roughly at 50% of capacity. That gives us quite a bit of room, even with Goddard coming online. And I can't think of a better alternative. I know we're all in favor of more housing and more affordable housing. I respect everybody on that. But what I haven't heard is if we don't do this project, what do we do? And I just feel like this is the best option on the table, even with the risks and concerns that people are raising, and they are legitimate risks and concerns. The other point I would make, and we heard this consistently, is that young people want to move to our town. And this is unusual for Vermont, and it's a great gift. And I think if we open the door, people will come. If we close the door, we're missing an opportunity. So I am appreciating the hard work that has been done to get us to this point. And I'm supporting the project, and I hope the select board will sign off.
Thank you, Andy.
David Scheckman again. And Andy's question now got passed off track. I guess I'll answer it. One of my biggest concerns has been that we have not explored all the possible options. I'm just gonna, I'll leave that there and then go to what is relevant today. Downstreet and Habitat's great. You know, I'm familiar with both, I'm all for it. why the 13 additional affordable lots, there's a downstreet funding for 5 years to monitor those or provide the services needed to get them going, but then nothing, right? So they're only guaranteed to be affordable for 5 years.
No.
Okay, that's what I thought I heard before at that meeting, at the committee meeting.
Okay.
So, again, this goes to program design, which is still a conversation. Downstreet will keep their 5 homes affordable
Yeah, got it,
perpetuity,
and
right?
Habitat and their own system.
So the other 12 homes could also have covenants, affordability covenants, and Downstreet could be asked to steward those covenants. And this is the way, I don't know if people are familiar with the term inclusionary zoning, but it's a zoning regulation that requires any developer to create affordable homes in their development as a requirement. It started in Aspen, Colorado, because they couldn't find any workers without it. And the way a lot of times that is enforced is to have a nonprofit like Downstreet be the intervener when there's a sale and make sure that the next buyer is income eligible.
But that's not included in the grant at this time for
Not yet,
those
but it
13.
is, but it is not yet because the program design isn't totally been discussed, and that would be a discussion with Downstreet. But that is a recommendation I've made, a model that I've suggested to the committee, but that's not in the grant yet. I could still write in the grant that there's a model available to the town to do that.
Yeah, and for my small part, anything that's funded that way should be affordable for.
In perpetuity,
Yes,
yeah, so that.
And just to clarify, those 13 lots, the current plan and budget is that they get essentially donated to the buyers that are vetted by Downstreet.
That's right, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks. Okay, Jake, same topic?
Same topic.
Go ahead.
Jake McBride, this is just a direct response to what David was just asking about. I share a concern of David's, which is, oh man, I lost it. Oh, the timer takes a lot of brain power to run.
You want to come back?
No, it was the first thing that David mentioned about.
Alternatives.
Oh, alternatives. Thank you. David had said, I'm afraid we haven't explored all options, and that's something I've been thinking about throughout this process. I'm like, what other pieces of land are there? What other options are there? Because there has been, a lot of opposition to this particular piece of land, and there are a lot of really valid concerns backing that up. And my biggest concern at this point is if we don't apply for this grant right now, are we going to be able to access funds like this anytime in the future, anytime soon? And I don't know the answer to that. I'm kind of assuming the answer is no. But I guess that's a question for y'all. I would love, David, I share your concern, and I would love to explore every single option. I want to take 10 years to do this process, but I want it to be done in 1 year. And those things just aren't quite possible. So for me, I don't want us to squander the moment, I guess. Yeah.
Thank you. I just want to say that, we're a year out from the last flood, and our mode of operation on the grants group has been that we've been reactive because it's been, there's this FEMA money, this is where you gotta go to get that, this is the federal highway money, this is where you have to go to get that, this is the USDA money, you have to go get, so it's been like, people have brought us resources, which has been awesome, like CDBG, and said, you guys need to apply, and I get a lot of that, people like, you guys need to apply, because I will remind you, I'm a volunteer. I would like to have a life at some point, but I am committed to seeing this through. And if there are other grants we can pursue, as long as Liz is in, I'm in, and there are, what are we seeing? Oh, Pat says, no money at this level. The regular CDBG has a maximum of $1 million per application. So that's the answer there. But if there are other funds, we will pursue them. It's just that we're doing as they come, because we're just still in recovery, guys. You know, we're going for what's put in front of us. And that's what this is. So, yes, please.
In terms of our alternatives, there are basically a whole range of ways to develop housing, right? And to be sure, it's unusual for a town to take the lead in this manner, but that land is already zoned as a neighborhood development area. So if the town doesn't buy it, the other model, you have a person who wants to sell it, so the other model of development is they will sell it to a private developer. And the private developer will develop it with probably some public involvement at the beginning, probably propose a classic development trick, propose 75 units, have everybody freak out, and then bring it back to 50 and everybody feels better. Classic development trick. So that's another model. That's another alternative. Another alternative is called scattered site rental rehab. Town could go buy the 13 or however many abandoned multifamily buildings in town. But think about how the town would do that. Who would oversee all the rehab? You've got lead paint, you've got asbestos, you've got the buildings. You know, you've got just old deteriorated buildings that would have to be gutted, rehabbed, and then these are multifamily apartments. Who would be the landlord? Would the town sell them to an investor? Who, you know, if the investor comes along, buys the multifamily units, who guarantees that they're gonna be managed well? There's just all sorts of questions, and you've, you know, done a great job of putting multifamily apartments back on the market, but it hasn't really achieved the replacement of the 39 homes that you lost, or that people are still living in the floodplain, want to get out of the floodplain, are threatened by future floods, and have an opportunity to build a new house in a safe, dry area that's not in a floodplain. So there are definitely other strategies. Another strategy is you could talk to Down Street about them developing affordable housing. And
How many years out are
you
they
could
now?
wait until their queue, you could get in a queue, and probably in about 5 years, they might come here. Their model is very large multifamily buildings, because that's the kind of funding that they can get. Goddard is likely to build housing. It's hard to know, because right now there's just a kind of idea on the table. So that may or may not happen, may or may not be affordable. You know, so yeah, there's lots of alternatives. I think there were certain goals that the Selectboard had and that the community had to just replace what you lost in the flood for all the reasons you heard before. And this became the most available opportunity in the shortest amount of time. And now you have a neighborhood development area where anybody can build on that property.
Okay. Thank you, Liz. All right. Anybody have comments on project management?
Hi, April Farnham, and this is in reference to what you first mentioned on.
Your call, so just pull it out. There you go.
This is in reference to what you mentioned when we first got here. You said that Barry had just approved 7 projects.
Yeah.
Can't hear you. Barry has approved 7 projects.
Yeah.
How many houses is that, or how many occupants?
Yeah, it's 3 projects that are, well, Pat, you were there last night, right? It's 3 housing projects. They also have infrastructure projects and hazard mitigation projects. So
Right.
3 of them are the larger, I believe, 2 of them are larger apartment building kind of
Yes.
setups, right?
Yes.
Pat, are you on?
Yes, there's a, one housing project is infrastructure to a 90-lot subdivision. Another project is 48 units of housing, apartment rentals in downtown Barrie. And then there's an additional 4 to 8 units of new housing in North End of Barry.
Right, I already knew that. But my question was, how many of those projects are being managed by the city as opposed to developers?
Pat?
One of the projects is being done by a developer. The 90 lot subdivision is being done by the city, and the North End development is being done by the city.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and my other question is, do they have the same timeline to complete the projects?
Yes.
Okay, so that means that all expenses, all material that we're gonna need, that's all gonna be in demand at that time, correct?
Depends who gets the grants.
If we get the grants, right? Who gets the?
Right, so say the grant goes through, we get the grants, we get the money, Barry's starting, we're starting, Montpelier's starting. There's gonna be an influx of material that's gonna be needed, right?
We need great project management. That's the truth.
Which leads me to my other question.
There you go.
You've got $500,000 for a project manager.
5 years.
For 5 years, 5 to 6 years.
Right.
That doesn't seem like a lot of money.
That's what I thought. What do you think? That was Liz's number. I put $1 million, but she.
Yeah, that's what, right.
But we have it built into some of the soft costs, don't we, with the, with folks on the ground and.
On the construction site.
Yeah, on the construction site. So there's
Kind of
actually more
duplicated.
money than that in there, because it's a team of people.
It's more like 700 and, it's more like 700 and.
It's more like 700.
230 plus 520. It's more like 700.
So it's more than what's
230
listed
plus
on here.
520, yeah.
It's more like 750,000, 230 in that 6.1 hard construction cost.
And what happens if we run, we as in Vermont, runs out of material and everything comes to a dead stop?
There's a
Because
lot
there's
of,
other projects going on besides
yeah,
these.
yeah, so that's one of the benefits of having kind of a large development is you can, especially if using factory built housing or talking with suppliers ahead of time and, you know, putting it in the pipeline. So that's one of the benefits of having all that project happen all at once is you can communicate that to suppliers. They're gonna know about it, you know, and there's a way to come up with that information if it's coordinated.
And I just want to say, I appreciate the woman who was standing up here and said that they were very thankful about people talking and respecting each other. I appreciated that. I'm not against the housing project itself. I'm against the town being responsible for the housing project, right? And I just want to, I think that's the majority of us. We want more people here. We need more people here, but it shouldn't be on the town. I think that the project should be put up and the land should be sold to developer and let them, they're the ones that are gonna have the cost of it on their backs, not the town. That's it.
Jared Birchmore, just a quick comment, question maybe, but just to get clarification. Looking at this grant proposal, in my mind, it really seems like the town is not being the developer. The town is more so the middleman to facilitate this development in a way that meets the needs of Plainfield and our residents in a way that we can have public input on. Whereas, as you had mentioned, if it gets sold to someone else and is developed privately, we lose that ability to have public input and comment. Thanks.
Thank you.
I have a question for Liz, based on your experience with, I'm sorry, I'm Lauren Geiger, 36 Hudson Avenue, Plainfield. My question has to do with your experience with private developers and the history of, in recent years, of private development in Vermont. My understanding is that private developers have increasingly developed more expensive housing so that they can make money, and that if a private developer came in to develop this particular property, it's very unlikely that there would be anything that would be affordable, that it would be much more, and I know that we use the term affordable, nothing seems affordable right now, because I know a box of Triscuits costs $5, right? So, I mean, but I'm just wondering if if it's really realistic to think if a private developer came in, that it would accomplish the goals that the East Village Expansion Advisory Committee was charged with by the select board.
Yeah, so, I mean, there's a range of private developers out there right now. There's a large single-family home developer working with Middlebury College because Middlebury desperately needed needed homes. It's called workforce housing. It's not affordable below 100% median. It's affordable. The Vermont Housing Finance Agency is kind of the agency in the state that helps first-time home buyers who have good, high-paying jobs. Like if you have two people earning $150,000, they're considered to be at like what's called 120%, called moderate income. Workforce housing is like moderate income. So the developer with Middlebury is building a lot of attached units, and they're selling for price points that a couple earning $150,000 maybe could afford. But they're also benefiting from Middlebury created a low-interest loan pool for the developer to use for construction, so their costs of financing are way down. So it's a partnership. That's one developer. Other developers that no partnership, no public money, they have to build their profit into it. That's their business. They do not build affordable homes. They can't even build workforce homes. So there are developers that will use public programs and they are able to deliver more affordable homes, but it has to be, that developer has to have the appetite and the willingness to deal with all the public bureaucracy, all the compliance, and they have to be experienced with it. And that's a challenge. There's small developers, like there's a guy in Fairhaven in the Upper Valley who's doing a lot of smaller multifamily building. He started his own construction company. He's using public money. He's delivering affordable rental housing, but he's also accepting all the compliance with it. There's a guy down in Bennington doing the same thing. They're smaller, they're doing a lot of rehab, and they're dealing with public grants and doing the compliance, but they're not delivering this product these days, because you can't deliver this product at this affordability without this kind of money, which isn't available normally. So, thank you, thanks.
Jake McBride again. April, I just wanted to kind of respond to what you just said. And I share your concern about the town being the developer essentially. But I also kind of agree with Jared that I feel like the town is more of a middleman to contract out. And I've grown up in a place and lived in several places where private developers have come in and said they were going to build affordable housing and didn't, and absolutely destroyed neighborhoods. And I don't want that to happen here. And I share your concern. I really do. I promise. I also don't trust any private developer to prioritize me, to prioritize anyone else who needs affordable housing, to prioritize anyone who's affected by the floods. I think they're going to prioritize their pocketbook, and all the evidence, supports that. So my concern with a private developer is whose interests do they have in mind, and I don't think it's mine. And when I say mine, I don't mean me in particular, I mean ours, us as a town, making sure this place is walkable, making sure it's affordable, making sure that it's accessible to seniors, people with children, young families, teachers, that's what I care about. And I don't know if a private developer is gonna share those concerns, and even if they say they do, will they deliver?
Thank you, Jim. All right. I would like to move this along if we can. So, yeah, one more. Go ahead, Barry.
Barry Idegan. My expertise is property management. I worked for National Life Insurance and Blue Cross Blue Shield. National Life for 27 years, Blue Cross Blue Shield for 16, and I was either a project manager or I led project managers in various IT-related projects. My concern, I'm torn both ways. I can see and I hear and I understand people talking about, we want this locally done. My biggest concern with being locally done is the unknowns. So when you have somebody who is in project management, you have all these processes to evaluate change. I see there are lines in the budget for contingencies, which I said, wow, great. Was it enough? I don't think so. I think there should be a 30% contingency for a project of this size. But I don't know, and maybe this will be established after the grant is received, approved, and a project manager is hired, that they will have processes to address, all right, the person working on the infrastructure, we just dug down and we hit ledge where we did not think there was going to be ledge. What are our options? What are our costs? How are we going to handle this? How is this going to affect the budget? Because in the long run, we want this to be zero impact on taxpayers. A private developer is going to have all of that and those processes in place. So I liked hearing when you were talking about, when somebody asked the question, what do you do when the costs exceed the budget? And you talked about, well, you can go and get additional grants. I would like to see those additional grants identified sooner now and start to be worked on, knowing that most likely we're going to exceed. And the last comment I have to make is, tonight's meeting is great. I really enjoyed being part of this, but I believe the select board, you have to be more proactive in communication to us taxpayers and what's going on and what the timelines are. So we can give you input. You know, sitting back and just saying, I'll warn it and hope people will come. You know, the little leaflet that came out, I think someone held it up, said, this was great, this was fantastic. It was, I found that helpful. And I read every page of the, and it was incredible, you know, because I went into it with certain, well, have they done this, have they done that? And I'm looking at it, and I'm looking at the contingency line, and I'm saying, wow, they did put a lot of thought and effort into this. But my concern is the unknown.
Yeah, I hear you. Thank
Okay.
you, Barry. I do want to say that in my role, I've been really clear that I don't know everything and that I have been very proactive about getting help and getting the right help. We did it with the FEMA PA work. We hired a consulting firm that knew how to navigate that. They have earned their money many times over by putting us in for projects that we would not have been able to identify, or even anything we could be reimbursed for. So the same thing with Liz being on the team for this piece of the work. I expect that when we put the RFP together for the project manager, we will do it with all kinds of guidance. I mean, I went to VLCT and Vermont Housing Conservation Board. You know, we've been able to go to the places where they can help us write the RFP, make sure it has the right skill sets, the right things, and Liz is gonna help us too. So it's like, we don't exactly know how to do it, but what, I will toot my own horn and say what I'm really good at is asking for help and finding the right help. And I'm kind of dogged that way. I know that I don't know it all, and I know that we don't know it all, but lots of people do. And if we ask the right people, we can get the help we need. And we've been doing that successfully for the last year. And I would expect we would do it on this and anything else related to this project. That's my commitment, because I don't want it to fail. I don't want that to be what I'm connected to. You know, I want us to succeed, all of us. I want us to have a community we're proud of, that we love to live in, that we feel connected to each other and like, wow, look what we did together. Like, I want that too. And yes, I have some concerns, 100%. I am not pie in the sky. I've been on the inside of this. I know that there's some risks, but I think we've had some really good help and some really good advice. And I will lean into that and continue to lean into that for us. So that's all I want to say about that.
Those that have already spoken several times, maybe allow other people to speak, because a lot of us have comments to make further down the list. So just, I'm worried we're gonna run out of
I
time.
didn't use up my time the
Last
last
one,
time,
David.
so I'll
Okay.
do it really quick.
Okay.
Two things. Liz, you can correct me. My understanding, which I heard today at the Goddard hearing, was that most development nationally is done by private developers. Most affordable housing development nationally by dollars is done by private developers. You can contradict me, this is what we were told. And we have a developer in town who's proposing an affordable project. Project management, obviously paramount, but the select board is gonna have a huge load. If you think there's a lot of decisions to make now, it's not gonna stop, because the project manager is gonna facilitate, but the decisions day to day are gonna be by, I hope, our elected representatives and not by an appointed committee.
Thank you. All right. Francis Rose.
Janice has a question in the chat, which I shared, which is, what happens if the bond loan vote is voted down and we have submitted this grant application?
What if? I'll put that question back to the board.
No, I guess
I
can
Which
talk
one?
about
Which
that.
one?
I'd like
The 600,000?
the 600,000 one.
So that there are other grants. It would be really up to the select board, obviously, to make a decision whether to apply for a grant instead. And that's all I can offer. I don't know what the select board would do, but, you know.
So perhaps the question is, does it jeopardize the grant?
I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, I think, again, it's a conversation with the state. It would depend on how the community responds, what the select board's direction is. Would the select board take that as people don't want the project, people don't want the loan? I don't know how the interpretation would go, but the select board would have to decide, do you still have the intent to do the project and apply for a grant for the land? And then that would go to the state. They might say, well, that lowers your readiness score, and they might score it lower.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna move us along here. Great. Thanks, everybody, for hanging in. Matching funds for the EWP grant. So this is the 25%, it's $304,000 to essentially help us to rebuild the bank along that stretch of from the Friends Meeting House to Plainfield Health Center. Charlie, please.
Charlotte Cogdell. I live on Walker Lane, formerly Upper Martin Meadow. Looking at the map that was shown here, which is the first time a map of this proposed project has come out, however sketchy, I realize that I have the most skin in the game. One of my properties appears. I have not been contacted formally by the committee, by the select board, by NRCS, formally. I've had two sets of inputs. I signed an agreement to let somebody fly a drone, and I made a statement a week ago at the select board meeting. What I'd like now to do is ask two questions. One has already been answered. Where is this project? We see a map. We saw a map with 4 black arrows, one going away from my house. My question is, what does this project propose to be done?
Okay, so Charlie, you and I had a conversation, and as background, this grant started many months ago, and about 6 months ago, the Trump administration paused the money. Actually put a moratorium on any of this spending. So we did not even think we were gonna be able to get this grant. A few weeks ago, they released it, and we had, it was back on the table. And so the question was asked in the grants group, could we put the matching money into this grant? The reason that Charlie has not seen reports or been contacted officially is because we were on hold The next step in our process would be to have a meeting with the property owners to go over the reports from NRCS. We have not done that yet. I spoke with Charlie and I said that we will do that as soon as I can take a breath after we're done with this. But we did not want to lose the opportunity for $1 million, it was $750,000 that they would pay for the bank strengthening. And we thought this was a great opportunity for the match. So there's still more work to do on that grant and that process. And I'm committed to working that through. So that is my answer.
Just a quick follow-up. The wording of the grant mentions the Friends Meeting House to the health center. There are 4 arrows on that map. There are also 7 properties that are within the boundaries of that map. One of them is not the health center.
Okay, there are.
Go
ahead.
What properties will be affected?
So there are many other pictures in the report. I just grabbed this one. It is not the only one. It's a full report from NRCS. And honestly, at this point, Charlie, I have not spent a lot of time on this grant in the last 2 months. So I will dive in and I will answer your questions, but I need to get through what I'm in the middle of right now.
I understand that.
Right.
And I'm giving you as much time as you need. What I really demand is that the landowners and the people that are affected, which everyone that lives on the Winooski River is involved in this.
They will
the
be.
public involved with
And
this.
they will be. They will be.
Okay, the NEPA grant to screen this property is coming up ostensibly in November. The agreement with the NRCS was signed by the select board last spring. I think the train has left the station and I want to get on that train.
I'm with you, and we'll get on the train together. So let's figure it out. Thank you, Charlie. Jared.
Jared Birchmore. I've been up here a lot, so I'm just going to keep it brief. I think with this, with the EWP grant, I think that any opportunity to match funds from some other source that is not our town having to foot the bill makes sense. And it's work that we likely need to do anyway. So having to match 25% of a grant that we already have access to with other money that isn't ours, I think that makes sense.
Thank you, Jared. Okay. Anybody else on this subject?
You gotta
Rose?
go back.
Am I even gonna go, do I have to?
No, you have to. Yeah, sorry. Come on, follow the rules.
Okay, you're right.
It's gotta go back to the list. I thought she was done.
I too want to speak in favor of the match. That's all I wanted to say, but I really want to ask a question. How do we submit our written comments?
Oh,
I
good question.
assume it's
Thank you.
online, but I don't know who we send them to.
Send them to the select board. Peter and I are gonna get together on Monday to make sure we have a complete list of all the emails that have been coming in and letters that have been coming in. So if you want to communicate with, about this and have your comments included, send them to Peter.
By Sunday?
By Monday. We're gonna do this and have it together by close of business Monday, so if you could do it over the weekend, that would be great.
I have been collecting all the emails that have been sent. Most of them have been sent, have thankfully been addressed to all the select board. I know of 2 that went only to Rose, but she forwarded them to me, so we have those. And we will make sure that they are all included.
Okay. Michael?
I'm curious about the other bank.
Oh.
The Littlewood Farm across the river, once this bank is reinforced and strengthened, from what I've learned from George, is that means there will be a countervailing force and erosion on that side.
Well, you know,
Are you going to be taking into account the effect on the other?
well, you know the great thing, Michael, is that George is a partner in this work with me, so I expect George will be at the meeting,
Great.
and he'll raise his questions. Thank you. All right, EWP, are we done? Hi, Jake.
Jake McBride, last WG. I want to encourage us all to acknowledge the fact that we're all in the same boat. I've heard comments saying, "Oh well, you know, I've bought my house. Why do I have to help subsidize other people's housing?" And not in this room tonight, but I've heard a lot of those comments. And I just, I don't live in Martin Meadow, and I really want this to happen, you know? And I think we're all in the same boat. I've got family in New Orleans, I spent a lot of time in Louisiana, and I've seen the effects of this on the town. And if any area, if the Plainfield Health Center, or if the Friends Meeting House, or if even 1 or 2 more houses get taken out, it affects all of us. So I just want us to keep that in mind when we're thinking about things like the EWP and the EVEAC. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah, so what would, let me just check with the room. Would it be okay with you if the last topics, we just put them together? If you still have things you want to talk about, come on up and let's just knock this out. So any of those, disaster effects, recovery, unmet needs, project description, project need impact, feasibility, and any other thing you might want to say in your 3 minutes, come on up. Ray.
Ray Carter, thank you all so much for all of the work that you have put into this. I hear in this room, and a lot of folks who have left, so much fear. I hear a lot of fear around the future. I hear a lot of fear around money. I feel a lot of fear. It is so scary right now to live in this country. And one of the things that helps me dissipate my fear a little tiny bit is living here in Plainfield. It's living here in Plainfield and the possibilities that we can create if we dissipate together a little bit of that fear, or maybe a little bit more of that fear, and see what we can build together. This is an opportunity to do something that we can build, that we can have ownership on, that we can come together on. And when I think about unmet needs and I hear things about the brochure, and I see the brochure that came out, and I hear how much work is being put in by the Selectboard, by volunteers, people are at capacity, trying to take care of this town and each other. And so when there are skill sets, like designing a brochure and creating communications, and there's clearly a need for the Selectboard to communicate more clearly, can we combine those efforts? Can we come together and figure out how to communicate so we reach all the people in this town and put a little bit less energy into fear and a little bit more energy into what we can do together? That is my request from this community. I volunteer a lot. I run the farmers market. I am putting so much energy into trying to create resilience in this community. We need everybody. There's been a lot of energy that's been put into potentially blocking this project, and there's so much needed in this town. And folks who are wanting to block, you probably have so many skills that could be used to build. Let's come together and do this. Thank you.
Charlotte Cockrell again. I've submitted some comments, and I just want to make this proposal more solid. May I say the narrative about the floods is confusing, rightfully so, because it has to be conflated. Beyond that, for example, talking about silt in the main stem during the 23 flood, and talking about debris jams in the 24 flood in Great Brook are ecological, hydrological, and geomorphological nonsense. Please make the statements understandable. You did not describe the flood in any comprehensible scientific way.
Charlie, I have a request, don't go away. No, come back here. You clearly have a way to describe it. I would ask that before Monday, you write it up and send it to me.
He
so
did.
we can put it. Do we have it?
Yes, we have.
After the flood, I have that. After the
Okay.
flood, George, I, and state river scientists made a presentation. That presentation is recorded. All that information is there. The main stem did not silt up and cause a higher flood. It just didn't.
All right.
The jams in Great Brook, I have studied those jams. I know every one. They were not caused by the landslide.
Okay.
In fact, the flood cleared the jams. It's nonsense.
Well, okay, thanks.
Get on the committee. Get on the committee.
Charlie, we will take care of that. We will look again and we'll do better. Thank you. Please.
Hi, John Cleary. My basic comments in support of this grant really are along these lines, that we all agree that the town has these major needs due to the floods, And I just want to point out how lucky we are that there is this source of funding right now. This is unusual that, it's specific to our geographic region. It's this big chunk of money that's normally not available for these types of needs. So we have these needs, and then we have this pot of money that's now being made available to us. And then the second lucky thing is that we actually have a project that has come together so well. There's a parcel of land, there's expertise on the committee that's put this all together. So what that makes me feel is that if the select board was to not submit this grant, they would actually be really abandoning their fiduciary obligation to the town to solve our problems. So I'm saying we're lucky that we're in this position, and so I really hope that we go forward with it.
Thanks, Jeff.
I'd like to thank all the volunteers who spent so much time on this. Seems like a pretty daunting project. And I too would like to address the concerns that folks seem to have and the fear that seems to be in the room. If you've ever started a business, you've encountered difficulty and you overcame it and you built your business. If you ever bought a home, you probably encountered difficulty after you bought it, found things you weren't expecting. That's just the nature of moving forward with difficult endeavors. If we don't do anything, as I understand it, if you lost 10% of your grant list, that means all of our taxes will go up by 11%, or you lose roughly 11% of your services, one or the other. You have less money for roads, less money from schools, and so on. If we figure out a way to replace that housing, then yeah, maybe the total cost of running the wastewater system will go up, but the per housing unit cost will go down. And the same with the tax base. If you have more homes, you have less tax liability per home in order to support efforts in the town. I acknowledge the risk. I do have some concerns about the price being asked for the property. I think we should probably look into that a little bit more, maybe get a second opinion on the appraisal or something like that. But overall, I support the project and we wish you luck with it, and I hope it passes.
Thank you, Steve.
Clearly has to come
Where can I go? Okay, this is a different take on this.
Who are you?
Oh, I'm Jana Osman. I live on the Lowell Road in Plainfield. I've been here for 50 years. I'm one of the older people in that community.
Speak up, Jan.
Okay, so my name is Jana Osman. I've spent my entire professional life working to make educational systems change and helping children succeed in school. I'm a member of the Plainfield School Board and have been for the past 6+ years. Plainfield, like almost every other school in Vermont, has seen a steadily declining student population for decades. This is a major problem in our small school because, as you know, schools are given funding on a per pupil basis. When we lose students, we lose money, and everyone pays more to maintain our school. We also lose programs that advance educational opportunities. The East Village expansion is extremely likely to bring more students into our school. From the perspective of an educator and a school board member, the potential for adding to our enrollment and the diversity of our student body will have a positive effect on the school's educational offerings and provide some tax relief to taxpayers. A robust school community makes us all stronger.
Thank you, Jen.
There's a hand online, Dawn Fancher.
John Fancher, Dawn, you're on.
Okay, hi, I'm Dawn Fancher. I live on Brook Road, Lower Brook Road on the corner of Cameron, and I just wanted to comment and support this grant. I think this is an opportunity that we can't afford to pass up. Again, this, as people have said, this pot of money doesn't come around very often. and we need it. This town needs it. I just want to echo what my neighbor Nancy and friend Nancy Ellen said, like maybe 2 hours ago. I am disabled about affordability and taxes. I'm disabled. I can't work. I have a limited pool of money to live on for the rest of my life. And I am more concerned about my taxes going up if this project doesn't happen than if it does. I'm also on town water. We need people in this town. We need people in the town to share the tax base, and we need people in this town to support each other. Again, like I said, I'm disabled. My parents are older. I need a community. I need a community. I am now closer to being a senior than I am to being the young family I was when I moved to this town 18 years ago. And speaking of, we moved here 18 years ago as two people who were about 30 and who had a baby. And so because there was affordable housing here, because we got a small 800-foot 3-bedroom house with a 2-acre yard for at the time about $800 a month, and today's dollars would be about $1,200 a month. And because of that, we're here in this town still. I worked at the co-op for forever. My ex was a business owner. My child grew up here and is now a voter, and she plans on staying here. My parents came to town, bought a house no one locally had bought at the time, and they have been in the historical society, the co-op board. And Josh is my ex, and Josh is now doing 3 jobs for the town, and I think the town is relying on him quite a bit. So that's what happens when you bring young families to town, is they help build the town, and they help the town in the future and make it better. And the more people we have in community, the better. And also, if I support the town being, like being instead of a private developer, because we can keep an eye on things. We can keep an eye on things like runoff and what's being done with the wetlands. We can keep an eye on all of that because it is ours, and we can make our town how we want it, how all of us want it. So thank you.
Thank you, Don.
Karen, I have a statement, not a question. I don't know if that's appropriate.
Yeah,
Who are you? I am Donnie Osmond.
Yes, thank you.
I live on the lower road with Jana. Lucky for me, amen. We have the opportunity to bring as much as $10 million into our small community. This would be an enormous economic stimulus that will ripple through our entire area. And a rising tide raises all boats. This economic jolt and increased economic activity in our town would have an effect of easing the property tax burdens by adding more homes to the grand list and easing the school tax by adding more students to our ever-dwindling school population. Today's question is, should the town submit this multi-million-dollar grant that comes with no matching requirements? My answer is yes. Until we apply for the grant, see if the grant is awarded, find out how much money is offered to our town, and determine the final scope of the project, I'm afraid we are voting either our worst fears or our higher hopes without this information. Folks have talked about risk entailed in moving forward with the East Village expansion. That's true. But I believe, with a huge amount of research and legwork done by citizens and professionals, that the risk is minimal and has been mitigated. And I would point out that not going forward with the East Village expansion may well bring an even greater risk to our town. Not doing this project risks continuing losing our population, a stagnant economy, and as a result, ever increasing property taxes. We risk having a town populated by mostly old people. We risk not bringing into our community younger people who will bring energy, creativity, vibrancy, entrepreneurial endeavors to our town. Recently, folks talked about the brochure. And The folks that put the brochure together called themselves Plainfielders for Responsible Growth, but there was not one word in that brochure that offered any ideas about how to create responsible growth. Only criticism of this plan. I have to say that it's easy to sit on the sidelines and throw slings and arrows at this project. No project of this magnitude is perfect. But I have heard not one word from the critics offering a real, fleshed out, concrete plan to create and develop the desperately needed housing and economic stimulation that we need in our town. This plan is the only one that's on the table that can yield the results that we need and begin to turn around the downward trajectory of our town in the foreseeable future. The East Village expansion is eminently viable. It has been worked on and honed with countless hours of work by a diverse group of citizens and professionals and state officials. At this point, every other idea to accomplish our needed goals is pie in the sky. Finally, I love the idea of bringing 100 new people to our town. And call me a liberal if you like, but I would even welcome immigrants from East Montpelier.
Couldn't wait for the punchline, we didn't want to cut him off.
Hi, Mitch Polly, Gary Road. I first want to say I am in support of this project. I have no idea what I'm going to say, just a comment, and I am speaking from the heart. Resident of Plainfield, 13 years, and it took a long time for my partner Ray and I to feel like we were a part of this community and this very special place, and we decided that it was up to us to do that. And getting involved in the farmers market and getting to know so many wonderful people that we haven't met before here, and being involved in flood recovery, helping out, and finally being a part of this place. There's so much beauty, there's so much love here, and there's a lot of diversity, there's a lot of differences. We have different opinions, different viewpoints. One of the things I will say that I recognize is that there is a lot of care. There's a lot of care for us individually, as a collective, and I know that it is in our heart of hearts that we want to see our town thrive. And despite whatever fears, whatever things about money, budgets, whatever, this is a way to go and do it. And we have an opportunity here to strike while the iron's hot, and let's take advantage of it. Let's bring the people we want to have here. Let's have our diversity. And all of those people, all of these people that are here, that have been here, I'm just trying to take away from you all. We're all just trying to love this land, love one another, and bring people in, and support our economy, support growth, and put houses, roofs over people's heads. And I want to say and acknowledge that there are many people who probably couldn't be here, who don't have the privilege or the resources to get here, whether it's online or in person. And I want to acknowledge my privilege and say that I live on some land, I live in a house, and I want to see people be able to have a house. Thank you. That's respect to everybody.
As one of the people who's been involved in this project since the
Say your
beginning.
name.
My name is Arian Boomer. I live on Fowler Road. Sorry, thank you. I just wanted to say thanks to everybody who showed up tonight, even who's left already. I know that we've quite a few people have left. This is such a good conversation, and I just really want to respect and appreciate that we could come together in this room tonight, that we have had this process, that for the most part the conversation has been civil, and even in this era when it feels really hard, you know, to hear each other and to, I don't want to imply that people came in this room tonight and people radically changed their minds or anything like that. I'm not sure that that occurred, but I do think a lot of people came in this room, and I know I felt this way of like, well, that person may have a different perspective than me, but they're really telling it like they see it, and I think they're speaking very honestly, and I really have a lot of respect for that. And so I just want to say thanks for letting me listen to the conversation tonight. Really grateful to be here, really appreciate those comments, and thank you to the Select Board and everybody else on the East Village Expansion Committee who's been working so hard for this. Thank you.
My name is Kim Medelinsky, and I serve on the East Village Expansion Advisory Committee. I'm not speaking on behalf of the committee, but of the project itself, of the East Village Expansion tonight, because I've been hearing a lot about, is this a done deal? Where are we in the process? And really specifically, in terms of the grant right now, are we passing a point of no return? And we're not committing to anything right now, but we're moving forward. So if I may put this into some perspective. Last March, the East Village Expansion came to Plainfield and said, hey, I've been coming around here. I think you're kind of cool. Do you want to have coffee sometime? And Plainfield said, yeah, seeing all the paper waving in the air, I'll have coffee with you. And so we started having coffee, pretty regularly actually. Every couple weeks, there are recordings of our dates. You can watch them on YouTube. And it's been pretty nice. Plainfield has introduced us to some of its friends. We started hanging out a lot with Karen Hatcher, a lot. There's been gossip about us, some rumors too. People are saying things are getting serious. And speaking as a voice of the East Village Expansion, I would have to say, yeah, we have feelings about you too, Plainfield. And here we are, out together tonight in our usual place. And we, the East Village Expansion, are asking you, would you like to have dinner sometime? In fact, it would be really great if you could have dinner in exactly 5 days, September 30th. How's September 30th for you? October's no good, it's gotta be the 30th. And I promise to drop you right back off at your door. And we really hope we say yes. We really hope so. We really hope you can get to know us better in the next several weeks, and you get to trust us and believe in us. Because on November 4th, we are going to say, Plainfield, would you like to meet my parents? The roughly 1,200 registered town voters. And nobody's going to exactly say it, but they will be deciding if they approve of you. They might say, oh, she's nice, and I just don't know if you all should be spending that much money together regardless of where it comes from. Or they might say, pretty smart cookie you got there, not bad looking too. We got a good feeling about you kids. Oh yeah, okay, might be a little more. All right, we hope things will go well in November because I'm going to put our heart on our sleeve here and say, when we find out about this grant, and if we get that big break, when that special day comes, we're going to get down on one knee and look deep into the eyes of Plainfield, all 2,400, however many of them there are, and we're going to say, Plainfield, I know I came into your life at a really hard time. You were going through so much, and I know I wasn't perfect. And you know what? I'm not ever going to be perfect, but we could be so good together. We could do beautiful things. And I don't want to sound codependent, but there really is no me without you. I'm home when I'm with you. In fact, I'm 40 homes when I'm with you. And I want to spend the rest of our lives together. I actually know a nice little spot around the corner, about 23.9 acres out of the floodplain, where we can have beautiful families, plural, together, and take care of the land, and keep each other safe. And I will do everything I can to be the best partner I can for you, especially with the help of a giant federal grant that would really help kickstart things forever. But I'm getting ahead of myself, because just tonight, you might be seeing a $10 million glimmer in our eyes, but we're just saying, do you want to have dinner?
need those comments to submit.
There's so much talent in this town, it's amazing, it's amazing. So, I believe that we are at the point where I'm gonna turn this meeting back over to the select board. And I just wanna, again, express my gratitude to all of you who came.
Please stop.
I will. And, we'll see where we go, but thank you all for your comments and, for being part of this community with me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Karen and Liz, for the, oh. Thank you, Karen and Liz.
The meeting is not adjourned, so if you're leaving, just leave quietly, but they're still in.
Yeah, we're still working. You know, when I was in business, I used to think of myself as being on a down escalator trying to go up. And you can do it if you work hard and you run. But if you just stand, you're going to go backwards. And that's the kind of the way I see this.
I'm not leaving quietly.
Okay. You can make noise, that's fine.
Maybe we allow a moment in transition.
The other thing I'm thinking about, I'm killing time for Peter. The other thing I'm thinking about is we have an apple orchard and we have some trees that are pretty old and they die. And I like to plant apple trees when they die because even though I'll never see an apple, somebody will, the next generation will. And I really feel that. I feel it's important for us to leave something. Anyway, just those couple thoughts I had. You want to fill time?
I'll fill time. I'll fill time. I've been thinking on what is $9 million worth of care that gets to flow to this town, to that parcel of land. The idea that I recognize that each dollar for care, because of inflation and the global economy, it's like maybe less of a deal, but still times 9 million. It's so much care going to this town, and that care is coming from this town, that is going to be administrated by this town, for this town. It's an unbelievable amount of care that we have the opportunity to welcome the opportunity to channel here.
You were killing time, but you're welcome to say something.
I needed to use the restroom.
It's been a long night, Peter.
I want to thank everybody for coming out. I want to specifically thank Karen and Liz for superb work. I want to thank all the people who sent us comments. I think my fellow select board members have come to learn that I am a stickler for details.
Yes.
And I appreciate all of the comments that people sent, pro and con. I learned from them. I learned from you tonight, more about the process yet to come. From Charlie Codville comments just recently. He sent stuff about the river. Tammy Farnham has given us, incredible information to process. It's all good. It's all good. I would think we would be incredibly foolish not to submit this application. $10 million is nothing to sneeze at. It comes with a lot of strings. It comes with a lot of work still to be done. We don't know if we'll get it. But from what I've heard, and from what I can see of our own work, we have a great chance. I'm sorry, I've been sick all week, so this is tough. I think we have a really competitive grant. I think we need to clean up some of the application. I've sent comments all week, and I know Liz and Karen have worked on that. We heard some things tonight that I think we need to clean up in the narrative, et cetera. I want to appreciate their responsiveness to the inputs, and we still have a ways to go. We still have a ways to go. Our voters will have an opportunity to weigh in for real, not advisory. And I think if you look on page 2 of today's Times Argus, there is a little correction down in the corner. It doesn't get the same headline, but people have been asking for a vote. And as a select board member, I was sitting counting up the comments of all the people who have sent stuff in and listing folks pro and con on this sheet here. Pro is on the right, con is in the middle, and then there are 3 on the left that are just, they didn't take a position, they just had some comments. And if you add all this up, it's only about 25 or 30 people. Now, many of them are what I would call frequent flyers. We really do, as a select board, need to take the pulse of the community here. And I am really looking forward to the vote that comes up in November. It is important. It is important that we hear from the community on this. We do have to reflect the will of the community, but we also have to make our best judgment and decisions as the legislative body. That is our responsibility. So I will be voting to submit this application, but with some edits. I wouldn't say amendments, but edits. And we do still have work to do.
I was just going to add that while we've been sitting here for the last 3.5 hours, 7 more pro and 2 against have landed in our inboxes.
I'm just kind of amazed at the passion that this town has, and everybody doesn't agree, but we do care about each other, and I think that's really obvious. And I think in these times, we need community. We need each other, and I think we show that we can be together and not at each other's throats. We don't have to agree, but I learned some things tonight, which was good, from the side that is worried, has fear, and there was talk about fear and what if this happens and what if that happens. That's life to me. I think this work that's been done has been very thorough and hit all the boxes we can hit with what we know today. In engineering school, they used to say you never have enough time and you never have enough information. And you just got to make a decision at some point to build a bridge. Put in a factor of safety and you're good. I think a factor of safety for us is the community.
Patty,
yes, go ahead.
would you like to chime in?
Me?
Yeah.
I would like to. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I want to say thank you to Kieran and Liz. Wow. What a huge meeting that you pulled. What a huge bunch of work that you've done for this community. You must be, I don't know what you're gonna do afterwards, go to the Caribbean or something, because you guys gotta be so tired and worn out. Thank you so much for all the work that you have done for us in Plainfield and this little town. I don't know what we would do without you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, very good.
So I have a question.
Yes.
There is a resolution that if the board moves to go forward with the application, needs to be approved, signed.
Okay.
Other than the one we just
You have
voted
it.
on Monday?
Did you vote on it on Monday?
Yes.
Okay, then that's the one, okay.
Okay.
Thank you. It's been done, great.
Make sure we have the right one.
Yeah, I have it right
Just,
there.
yeah, we could just, Peter's got everything.
Yeah, we
You're
voted.
so great, Peter.
Definitely.
Love that. Okay.
Yeah, it was the one that you had given us a couple weeks ago, and then we
Yeah.
updated it to the 22nd.
Correct.
No, we voted for that on the 22nd.
On the 22nd, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Okay.
done.
Yeah.
So that is done, that'll be part of the package, so.
Yeah, and all of those documents, actually, if the yellow folder is still here, you'll probably see it in there, and I believe they all have the correct numbers of signatures on it.
Yeah.
So,
To be scanned and sent to Liz then. Okay,
yeah.
thank you. Okay.
Any other discussion with the board?
I want to say, Liz, you sent out an email that kind of boiled it down, that says this application needs to be, and you said this earlier tonight, is we're replacing the housing that was lost. That's this in a nutshell. And to not have, well, to have the opportunity to do that with these one-time monies, that's anytime soon from any other source. Are there other ways to fund this project? Sure, we could bond for money, which will cost the taxpayers not only principal, but a lot of interest. We could perhaps use CHIP financing, which the legislature just approved, which, yes, it could work. I haven't seen, and I don't think the committee has spent the time crunching the numbers on it, but it means that the benefit of that investment, while it could pay for the infrastructure investment, the benefit to the rest of the taxpayers in towns of having that growth would be deferred for quite a few years, okay? And so this is really a great opportunity. I think just that simplicity of we're replacing that housing is terrifically important.
Yeah. Did you have a thought? You were gonna, I thought you were gonna say something.
Is it one that I've not already shared? I mean, I want to speak to those who are against this project. What I'm hearing is consensus from the board that we're into this enough to keep seeing about it, to proceed. And, I recognize that this runs the risk of alienating, insulting, flying in the face of the better judgments and wisdom and earnest concerns, which if those who do oppose this project can believe your concerns are our concerns. If this sends us down some kind of slide that proceeds more quickly toward who knows what exactly, I hope that the energy that has been used to oppose this project can be channeled in support of making the project better. I really hope Charlie Cogbill sends exactly the narrative that wants to be included in this grant.
He did.
And it is, I want to make sure these two get it. I want to make sure these two get it. And so, this is, it's like a test for the town. We are of one community with many viewpoints differing. And we also recognize, and I think a lot of the fears that we heard spoken to tonight were about, we are on the same boat. And if the boat sinks, it sucks for everybody.
Yeah, 100%.
And so, here we are. May we work together. May we improve the outcome. May we work to reduce harm. May we grow community.
Hear, hear.
Two things. The first I'll say is in terms of, all being in the same boat. At the Plainfield Forward meeting the other night, there were two top vote getters. One was the Community Resiliency Hub and the other was a housing strategy. And I know that there are other people who made some comments opposed to this grant or particular aspects of it, who are interested in housing. There are other things that we can do in town, and we should not give up on those. This is not. On a more technical level, and you mentioned, Charlie's comments, I know Michael Billingsley had some about floodplain, et cetera. We will go through all the comments that were submitted, but I would just ask the rest of the select board, were there any particular things that you heard tonight that you wanted to make sure we double checked as we went through this?
Nothing that's not specific for me.
I found this program clarifying.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I found a kind of an overall interest in all the work that's been done to plan this out. And the folks who are for it are the ones who are planning it out. They have the vision, and they've done a lot of concrete work to understand what it is we're trying to do. The folks who are against it, oftentimes it's fear of the unknown. And I would rather move forward than the fear of the unknown. There's always going to be unknowns. That's my thought.
Well, and I would say to that, the change is difficult. Change is difficult.
Yeah.
And, particularly for the abutters or people who drive down East Hill like us, and will look at something different in years future. That's hard. It's hard. It is change, but it is change that has public input, that has planning, and has the opportunity to be shaped and as you hit ledge, if you will, and have to change direction slightly, et cetera. That's a huge advantage when compared to the people in the village who had no opportunity to see that change when that flood hit.
Yeah.
It was like that. Yep. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, Michael, yes. You had one more thought.
Yeah.
I think we're small enough.
I believe I'm the only.
Could you at least speak closer to the owl?
To the owl.
You can address the room, but just be near the owl.
It's an owl, see?
I believe I'm the only person left in the room who's an opponent, but I'm not an opponent of Plainfield. I'm not an opponent of growth or development. I read the room. I had more comments to make, prepared with suggestions, but I didn't because I read the room and it was just not going to go over. And I'll maybe share them privately with some of you later. The one thing I mourn is that early on, when a number of us said, we're not so sure about important aspects of this project, we should consider some alternatives, we initially got a little encouragement, particularly from Peter, to explore that. And then my impression is we got thwarted in favor of the VCRD thing and in favor of not upsetting the apple cart of the project that had its momentum. And I mourn that you didn't, as a board, tap into the energy that there were 25 or 30 of us exchanging emails constantly trying to come up with ideas of how to understand this project, how to criticize it if necessary, how to present alternatives. But we didn't have an official way to do that with you because you didn't want that yet. And that's a shame because now that we're in this position of a deadline in 2 days to submit something, you obviously can't be considering these alternatives. They won't fly, they won't be eligible for this money. We could have presented something that was harmonious with the project, that maybe the project could have been scaled down a little bit and other things could have been added and we could still replace 40 units. But that didn't happen, and I'm sorry about that for all of us.
Me too.
But I really want you to understand that all of us who have opposed the project have done it because we care about this town.
I think we feel that.
Michael, I just want to say, the original group was not led by the select board. It was a group of citizens that came together and made a suggestion, and the select board liked it enough to investigate it further. And I have encouraged so hard a lot of people who have opposed this project to do the same. And they haven't. They didn't need to do it in an official capacity. It could have been a volunteer program, just like this one, that proposed something to the select board.
I agree with you.
And it never happened.
But the time.
It didn't happen.
Yeah.
What's that, Patty?
I didn't hear that at all. I heard like, yes, let's take this money, let's take this grant money, but also let's look at the hotel. The hotel is gonna do like what, 18 units? Goddard is looking at stuff. It's not like we're saying, let's not look at anything else. We just said, let's look into this thing for the big thing and then keep our options open for other stuff. Because we don't want just this, we want to make Plainfield a really viable living community again.
Yep, good.
I would say, I think there's still so much time to do so much. I would say that I really think we need, a reporter interviewed me the other day about like, oh, isn't the Goddard project pitted against this East Village expansion? And my response to that was, like, we need everything. They're like, well, what would you say to Michael Davidson? I would say thank you. Thank you so much for showing up and doing all this stuff. And there's so much potential, and he has taken on a huge project. And I think like I voted for the housing strategies thing at the Plainfield Forward event. I think we need a more comprehensive housing plan, and I think we need other projects. I mean, replacing what we lost, that gets us back to where we started.
We were still behind.
Stuff, right?
Yeah.
I would also say with the VCRD thing, they came to the select board last November or October and just offered services. And the initial input was sort of tepid because they had done the ramp project with us a few years before, which kind of didn't result in anything, mostly because of COVID, basically stopped all kinds of activity. But the fact that they came back to us and we went to them and said, can we do something with housing? They wanted to do it a little broader than that, but the top two vote getters, the ones that are going to have their professional expertise and consultation, is going to get us, a Liz Curry type assistance in developing that, not just an ad hoc group. So I'm excited about that because it will be, tangible strategic steps that we can take, and it's fill-in housing or derelict housing or, I don't know if there are other properties, I'm sure if I said, let's put a development in the town forest, Rose Paul would be all over me in the Conservation Committee. But, that is another property that we own, right?
Sure.
But,
It was my first choice. I volunteered for it.
I know you did.
And I have one more request of the board tonight. Write a letter in support of the Goddard application. Send it to them before they submit their application.
I think that application's, in my opinion, is half finished. There's a lot of things that say in process, in process, in process, in process. So I think for our select board to write a letter supporting it, I'll stop there.
You're not supporting the application in its form, you're supporting the idea of them expanding housing in the town. I think you should support it.
Go ahead. Yeah, I would just say, there was a technical glitch. They submitted a proposal to the District Environmental Commission for 10 to 60 units.
Yeah.
And they received a jurisdictional opinion, a JO, that said it's exempt from Act 250. We just learned that this week, because when that opinion was issued, they have to, there's a list of folks that legally have to be notified, including the Plainfield Selectboard, the Plainfield Town Clerk, the Planning Commission, et cetera. District Environmental Commission had every single email wrong, and had the town clerk was still Linda Wells, 2 town clerks ago. So no one in Plainfield received the notice. It was sent out on August 17th. The 30-day response time had passed by September 17th. We've now corrected the information with the District Environmental Commission, but we had no opportunity to even comment because of a technical glitch.
Wow.
We are in support of their plans. I've been in touch with Mike Davidson quite a lot. And he's a dreamer, but he also gets things done, so.
He's got people who are gonna get them done for him.
Yeah, I appreciate what he's doing, yeah.
And I know that.
May I ask? So Plainfield Housing Commission is like a motion away. Would you step on it?
I'm super busy, but I obviously ended up putting a whole lot of time into something
Come on,
else.
Michael,
You
we're
know-
all super busy.
So I mean, so my recollection of the sequence was,
I'm out of my mind,
it
right?
came up, Plainfield Housing Committee. No one materialized in that moment. And then it came up again, and then there was, well, I would be on it, but it seems like there's not enough people on it. And then, and then the comment about, well, the VCRD program, Plainfield Forward, it didn't have a name then. Was like, maybe that's gonna like offer us the fire underneath that is gonna like bring it to life. And
You
so,
may recall in that meeting, I was very enthusiastic about that.
Yeah.
and so, I mean, I want to take responsibility for not pushing harder for a Plainfield Housing Committee months ago, because I agree with you that we are unfortunately no closer to fleshed out ideas for how to bring more housing online through channels that have nothing to do with that parcel.
But we have ideas, but they're not fleshed out.
Exactly. And so, you know, ideas are great, but what brought this idea to this place is a lot of people behind it, fleshing it out and making it real.
A lot of work.
And some grant money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Eli, did you still have a comment? Are you? No, good.
Okay.
Thank you, Michael, truly.
Thanks, yeah.
Thank you, Michael, good night.
Is it time for us to get kicked out?
You guys have, you have an executive session, do you not?
So we need to check in with our attorney. Do we,
never got-
no formal motions
me-
are needed right now because,
We won't
just to
have an
clarify,
executive.
The resolution already.
we signed the resolution already.
They take a motion and a vote in favor, just
Just,
for hell of
just
it.
for the ceremony.
Just for the ceremony?
I would make a motion that the Plainfield Select Board support formally the grant application of the East Village expansion project.
I second it.
Motion and second. Any discussion amongst the board? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it, unanimous.
4-0. We haven't noted formally, Dan Fingus is absent from this meeting tonight, so unanimous 4-0.
Yes.
I'm gonna write that.
I'm wondering if there might be, even though our attorney is not here,
Any utility in talking
that there might be
amongst
some
ourselves?
utility for us to talk
Why don't we,
in executive session.
why don't we have a motion for executive?
I'll move we go into executive session to discuss a real estate matter.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor say aye.
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 We'll have to kick out everybody at.
Everybody's getting kicked out.
I move that we come out of executive session.
Seconded.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are, well, I guess we can have a motion to adjourn. We have no action from our executive session at this point.
Would make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 10:23 PM.
I second that.
And all those in favor of that?
Yeah.
Aye. Aye.
All
Oh,
right,
man.
thank you all.